One.
Good morning, everyone. Recognizing a quorum of commissioners, I call the August 22nd, 2024 meeting of the Cannabis Control Commission to order. This meeting is being held hybrid pursuant to Chapter 22 of the Acts of 2022 and is being recorded. Commissioners Camargo, Stebbins, and myself are participating in today's meeting. All votes taken today will be by roll call. I will generally summarize our agenda. We will start with opening comments from commissioners before we proceed to the public listening session regarding outdoor cultivation. I will ask that commissioners wishing to comment or ask questions during any part of the meeting raise their hand to be recognized. Commissioner comments and updates. With those initial comments, I'll turn things over to commissioners for any comment and or update. Commissioners, we will go in alphabetical order and I will give my comments last. For the public listen sessioning part of this, for those wishing to testify, if you haven't already, please add your name on the sign-up sheet. We will take testimony in the order of the sign-in. If there are elected officials who wish to testify, they may go first. In order to allow as many people as possible to testify, we will be limiting testimony to 3 minutes. Speakers may be asked follow-up questions at the discretion of the commissioners. The commission asks that speakers use respectful language. For those who cannot attend this meeting, public meeting in person, written comments regarding outdoor cultivation may be submitted to commission@cccmass.com. Okay, so having said that, I will start with Commissioner Camargo for any opening comments.
Sure, I'll be quick. Good morning. Thank you for being here. It was a beautiful drive from Boston, so I'm just very grateful to be here. And I also want to thank Commissioner Concepcion as well for pushing us to have this meeting here today, and Matt and your folks and folks that we've been talking to for a while in terms of having this conversation. So thank you so much.
Good morning. Great to be out here. I was out here 21 years ago when I got married. Back in Grand Barrington. But time this money, you all need to get back to work. So that's all I have.
Thank you for your service. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day to be with us, to share your thoughts, your feedback, your concerns. It's really important. It's one of the most important part of the jobs as commissioners, that we listen directly to you, the constituents and the stakeholders. And I just want to share with you how important you are in the industry. And we're here for outdoor cultivation today, so I'll focus on that. But as a list is fluid, but as last check, there's 24 outdoor cultivators in Massachusetts for cannabis. You guys yield about you have about 1.5 million square feet of canopy, of outdoor canopy. That's an average of 62,500 per cultivator. In the total cultivation universe, indoor and outdoor, there are 17 SEP, 2 EEA, and 11 DBA. And I just want to thank you. I always say this, it's a science, right? Farming is a science. And yesterday, 2 days ago, I want to thank, we had a tour. I was there virtually, and Commissioner Stebbins was also there, and we were in Middleborough, and Dave, right? So I want to thank you so much. It was HH. I'm going to mess the name up. Maybe you can help me. Dave, what's your entity? HH?
Say that again.
What's the name of your entity?
Holistic Health Group.
I knew they was I stood for something, and I was control on that. So thank you so much for going over that. So today we want to really have a constructive dialogue and feedback. But what you yield, literally yield for the state of Massachusetts, you are the top crop, right? You outpace cranberries now as the most lucrative crop in Massachusetts. Create hundreds of millions of dollars in excise tax. Cannabis has created thousands and thousands, over 20,000 jobs in this space. And imagine doing all of that and then being in an industry where it's federally illegal, right? I don't know how you guys do it, honestly. No bankruptcy protection, no 280, you can't deduct ordinary tax deductions, and no bank access to regular banking. And despite it all, it's a $7 billion industry, and you're the top crop. So why don't you start by giving yourself a round of applause? Get to work, and again, it's about 3 minutes per person. Callie has the timer over there. I think it gives you a warning before you get the hook. but it does give you a warning. So I'm gonna go down the list and I'm gonna start with Matt Allen. And I was told that the first three are panel. So if Matt Allen is here, Don Duncan or Sahiko Uno, right?
Yes.
Okay. So,
Next on our panel is gonna be Dave DeWitt. So,
who else Dave to win?
this gentleman here.
Yes, Dave.
Give you a shout out. So thank you. My name's Matt Allen. I'm CEO of MA Craft Cultivation at Outdoor Farm in Coleraine. It's a tier 6. Really appreciate the opportunity to be here today. I'm going to start with some more broad comments. The inaugural commission had a big job to set up this industry, balance public safety, public interest, just a business as a consumers. And it was a big job and they got things rolling. But the way I see it, and I hope you agree, is that this commission has an equally big job. And that's to continue to evolve the industry in a way that allows small businesses to thrive. Things have changed since the first commission came in. It was now generally accepted that medical cannabis helps a lot of patients. The dispensaries aren't any kind of threat to public safety. In fact, they offer economic development. And youth use is down, so that's less of a concern than it used to be. But it was a concern, and kind of in line with the comments that you made, Commissioner Stebbins, because it's how do we survive? How do we make sure some of these.
But that's what I'll take it as.
You're good.
I'm just so excited to be here. So forgive me for sure.
No,
But in line with your comments, it's how do we survive in this challenging environment? And that's what the Sungrown Cannabis Alliance is all about. It is trying to change some regulations so we can all function better. So with me today is Sahiko Ono, who's one of the founders of EOS and also an outdoor cultivation expert, and Dave DeWitt, works with the health groups to be doing organic growing for a long time. We also found a number of high blue craft cooperatives. Again, I want to thank you all for holding this hearing, for taking the time to meet with us behind the scenes, for coming out to visit farms and retailers that work with outdoor farms. I just want to quickly go over some of the policy points that are on this Sungrown Cannabis Alliance platform before turning to Dave and Sahiko and talk about some of the more complicated issues. Some of the things that have come from our group is that we would like to not have to put metric tags on flowers. They're little smaller plants, and when they're out there in the wind, oh, there we go. There's our right there. Thank you, Mike. I got you the program director.
great.
Don't need these little plants are out there with metric tags. They're getting all blown around like plants. Not really doable. Quality control samples is another issue for us. There's no clear guidance on how to get these out to our staff. Some operators do it in line with regulations. Other ones are scared to without having clear guidance on how to do that. They think you got to send it to a retail. Fear is something that is a barrier for all of us. I've never been, one of these businesses can be pretty terrifying. I've never been so scared of the weather. But we're also scared of the commission. Another issue for us is exorbitant fines. We've seen one outdoor operator be fined $120,000 for using some mobile equipment. They lost their crop. They had forfeited their crop. That kind of thing should be, enough of a penalty for a small business operator. But those kind of fines can put some business and do nothing more than just right in the environment for Rooflex Philip Morris to take over in a few years. And then my last point would be soil and water testing. We're always testing for soil over and over. It's about $500 per 100 square feet. That could be almost $500,000 for a tier 11 operator. And this was something we're testing on the back end for heavy metals. We tested cannabis for. Anyway, same goes with water testing. Why are we testing for microbials in our growing? So appreciate the time to speak here today. With that, I'll turn this to Steve.
So yeah, we're all here together. We're representing the Sungrown Cannabis Alliance. My name is Sahiko Ono. I got into this. I've been involved in organic agriculture in one form or another since 1999. And so my interest in cannabis cultivation, have had a long love and relationship with the plant, but specifically my interest is the intersection of cannabis and agriculture, farms. When our draft regs came out in 2017, I was living in Arizona and packed up 2 U-Hauls and came out and started EOS Farms. We were very contrarian at the time. Everyone was saying how you cannot grow cannabis outdoors in the Northeast. We were the 5th of the licensed outdoor cultivators here in Mass. And it's not without challenges, but without a doubt. One of the things Dave's been talking about in great eloquent detail is the micro testing thresholds. But one thing I actually just want to frame, this is a conversation around outdoor cannabis and the cultivation in Massachusetts. So, as I said, my specific interest is agriculture and ways of making local, so-called organic, whatever the term of art these days is, viable. This is an incredible cash crop, as you already pointed out, right? Already, only, and think about that, right? There's only 1 million acres, or excuse me, 1 million square feet of cannabis growing outdoors in Massachusetts. And even with that, already we're outpacing cranberries. Now, a few things to think about, right? So there's a very important conversation around sustainability, equity, and these things really, they intersect around the conversation of how it's grown, the outdoor cultivation, right? So that sustainability and that possibility is strong, but there's also sustainability in the economic sense. So a few metrics I wanted to point out to everybody. This is up to June. So the average cost per gram at retail is $5.06. Okay, per gram at retail, $5.06. Let me also point out that the total market has been growing year over year with like 5 to 6% growth. So it continues to grow total market, but the price continues to drop or stay around $5. So $5 at retail, that means at wholesale, it's about $2.50. After packaging, brand marketing, and sales, we have to be under $1 up to harvest. Let's say harvest, fully prepped and ready to go to production finished goods at under $1 a gram. So that's under $400 a pound. Okay, cultivation. But here's the problem. To build an indoor cultivation facility costs about $500 to $1,000 a square foot. And depending on how much people are actually tracking the numbers, which in my experience is not very well, but they're growing it at somewhere indoors around, it's called 600 to 900 pounds. So let me say that again. You have to be growing cannabis right now to get it at retail at $5 at under $1 a pound. That's under $400. I'm sorry, under $1 a gram. That's under $400 a pound. Growing indoors costs $600 to $900. Okay. In an alternative, outdoor cultivation, we can build it out compliantly for $15 a square foot. I can show you how. I can show you all the modeling about it. And we can grow it at $50 to $150 a pound. Let that sink in for a second. Yeah. We can build out not at $500 to $1,000 a square foot, but at $15 to $30 a square foot for cultivation square footage. We only get one run, yes, but we can have more square footage. That's number one. That could also be integrated into food farms as a cash crop. Number two. Number three, we can show those farmers how to grow it at $50 to $150 a pound. That's legit. EOS Farms, those two over there, you know, we've had our struggles, no doubt, but I now work in New York with Pura. I get the good fortune of the insight of, you know, you get to see a lot of cannabis growing outdoors, and you can do it outdoors, believe me. And you can do it at $50 to $150 a pound. So, point is, if we make this viable for outdoor cultivators with some policy changes, you know, very simple fixes like the microbials, we've been stomping our feet, at least I have, since, you know, we first published the petition in 2019. And I understand the sentiment, right? We want to protect the public, and we all agree with that. We want the most healthy, viable product, and we want to protect the consumer. Sherman Olin hopefully will be a voice that will be heard by the commission at some point. You know, Helen is working on that. We've been also banging that drum, but it comes down simply to this. We test for total yeast mold and total viable aerobic bacteria, which is the equivalent of testing for acidophilus in your stomach and then calling yourself dirty. You hear this term dirty weed, right? Moldy, dirty weed. But that's like saying I have dirty colon and dirty skin, dirty hands. I certainly do. And that's what we want, right? That dirtiness. But if you test for it and fail, then you can't bring it to market. Then you're forced to remediate. It's a whole other conversation. But That being said, the point is, there is a vision that a lot of people in this room share about the potential for the future of Massachusetts cannabis. Now, you take that underlying economic driver, and then you layer on top of that the possibility of a brand like they do in, maybe you've heard of wines, right? Appellations, local terroir. So these things are all very possible if we create the framework. Now, there's also, something I've been pushing for with everybody in this room to create a guild of outdoor growers, but that's another conversation. So I'm going to turn this over to David to talk about the cannabis and its relationship to micro testing and this one specific thing, which is just it's an economic. It needs to change. Please.
Thank you, Sudhi. And thanks for making the big picture.
Yes.
Thank you, commissioners, for having us today. My name is David DeWitt. I am a founding member of Hygiene Craft Cooperative. We have a provisional license. We're still fighting the abutters, of course. We probably are second or third craft cooperative license in the state. As you all know, that's the license for farmers, which I am a farmer. I'm also a part-time employee at Holistic Health Group, and I help manage their outdoor grow and work indoors as well. But I'm really here mainly to talk to you about farming and the aspect of organic farming and biological farming, which I've been farming for 37 years in Truro. Truro is where our farm is and our cannabis company. So I'm going to give you a quick picture of biological farming a little bit and how what we're trying to achieve when we grow our vegetables and nursery stock. We try to work in concert with the environment. So we're trying to foster microbial activity, not just in the soil, which is kind of like what you would think would be the normal thing, but fostering the soil food web creates a healthy plant. If we have healthy soil, we're going to have healthy plants that can then fight off things like botrytis, Scenaria, and powdery mildew, and septoria, and other common issues that everyone grower in this room knows about. It also includes the microbes on the leaf of the plant. And that's really where you guys get involved here. I've been working with the CTC testifying since the very beginning. Had many deep discussions with Commissioner Doyle over the years about a lot of different things. But one of the things that is important to me as a farmer is the microbial testing. So we're going to backstep it we're going to go to my organic farm now. So I sell at 2 farmers markets, 19 restaurant accounts, and I have a CSA as well. We're doing that for, like I said, almost 4 decades now. We actually actively spray, and I'm a Korean natural farmer, so we are using a lot of microbial, indigenous microorganisms to produce our crops, our lettuces, our cauliflower, everything we grow. We're actually encouraging and spraying microbes onto our plants to have somewhat, like I mentioned to the 2 of you the other day when you visited us there too, for that, by the way. We're having like biological warfare basically on the leaves of our plant and flowers. So we're trying to foster a relationship between beneficial non-pathogenic microbes and the pathogenic, plant pathogenic ones that could potentially harm our crops, such as botrytis, powdery mildew, and the so-called dirty things that we have, right? So if we're going to be spraying organisms on our crops, like we do, and then using the pesticides that we're allowed to use both now here in the cannabis industry, but in the vegetable industry, many of those pesticides can be sprayed. For instance, I'm just going to use BT as an example, Bacillus thuringiensis. We can spray that to the day of harvest. I can spray that on my kale plant, bunch it up, rinse it off, bring it to the farmer's market and sell it to you the day I sprayed it. You can consume it minutes later. And it's completely fine. No damaging effects whatsoever to the public. Fortunately, 25 feet minimum use is no longer with us, as it went out with Charlie Baker and John LeBeau from MDAR. MDAR released pesticides for us to use and fungicides, which we're now, most of us are probably using, and with great effect. So the ironic part here is that the products that we're using, like same products I use on my vegetable farm, we're now using in the cannabis industry, is mainly bacterium and funguses that we're actually spraying microbes out to get rid of our pests. and then it's gonna count towards our total count. So to restructure the microbial testing is extremely important for outdoor growers and indoor growers, by the way. It's not just an outdoor situation. They have the same issues that we have. So by spraying microbes on our crops to produce a healthy and productive crop and then allow us to be competitive in the industry, our testing limits have got to change. Personally, I'm all for pathogenic testing, E. coli, salmonella, aspergillus. There's very few others actually, but there's a lot of really good ones. You know, there's a lot of other organisms that have healthy benefit towards producing a plant, and do not harm humans. So you see our policy that that Matt just handed you guys, a little bit more of the numbers are in there about some of our requests for microbial testing. But the name of the picture is, the main picture is that we could do this organically like we do our butternut squash, but we need to have the ability to do it. And if testing is going to not get our product to market or force us into remediation, which is not a sustainable situation for any of us. There's no 20-year study of what happens when we smoke irradiated cannabis. So I think it's in the benefit of our soil, our environment, and our customers to do it as organically as possible. So by reducing those microbial thresholds is the first step in allowing us the opportunity to compete in the industry and grow a truly regenerative plant and product. Thanks for your time.
Before I just have, thank you so much. And I do have questions for Matt as well. So I just want to get understanding, and you're advocating for reducing microbial thresholds, but as you mentioned, there's beneficial microbes and pathogenic microbes. So you're not advocating for not testing for Pseudomonas aeruginosa, Clostridium botulinum, toxigenic E. coli, Salmonella, Aspergillus. You're not advocating that.
I think we should definitely be testing for
All of those.
human pathogen, 100%.
Okay. So tell me the microbes you think are beneficial tell me, in other words, if you had a magic wand, tell me the microbes that you feel are beneficial.
We'll call them the good bugs.
Yeah,
What do we wanna call them?
you find yogurt. Right?
Yes, yes. So
We want to ask about
that list would fill up this room a trillion times over.
Okay.
Because you're looking at bacilluses, numerous amounts of bacillus, trichoderma, penicillium, and literally that list could go on for a long time. And what those things do on the plant leaf, on the plant surface, is help with photosynthesis, amino acid production, enzyme reactions, and all sorts of beneficial things that will enable the plant to withstand disease pressure. So to give you a full list of that would be very difficult, but a lot of us bacillus is a very common one, right? So lactic acid bacillus is one that is a really great one to use.
Right.
That we really want to encourage on our plants and in our soil. But we would have to pass test.
Can I respond to that also?
Okay.
Yeah, so the Sherman Ohm, again, he's the foremost expert on this topic and has written quite a bit about this and has done a lot of it's a geo, I don't want to get the name wrong, but Sherman Ohm. And I think there's two questions, right? We don't want to test for what's good. We just don't want to prohibit what's not bad. So again, what we want to make sure is all that I would do in a perfect world is wave a wand and remove total yeast mold and total viable aerobic bacteria testing. Okay. Now, the language was originally changed in section 160. And so originally the language said you had to look at the medical protocol. It now says medical or adult use. We're just waiting on the OCM to put forward the protocol. And all we're asking for is to do the exact same thing that you have for medical. Just remove total yeast mold and total viable aerobic bacteria, because those are non-speciated tests. They just test for coliforming units. Depending on how it's tested, again, we're testing for, it's a so-called indicator test. That's what the labs like to call it. But if you listen to Sherman Ohm and some of the, and I like to look at science, which I know is, mixed feelings about that, but nevertheless, I really do like science, and I like to link things to causal relationships. We have not seen, there is nothing that relates to causal harm to total yeast mold and total viable aerobic bacteria. That's number one. Number two, in New York, it's a report only for total yeast mold and total viable aerobic bacteria. Now, because of all of the misconceptions about this, some of the retailers will look at it and say, oh, well, you have a hive. dirty secret, some of the growers in New York may also be remediating, so a lot of times you'll see it low. Now, my point is also this. We have not seen any issues of direct, of lung related that I'm aware of, other than, grinding inside of closed environments. But for consumers and aspergillus and all of these relationships between those, we haven't seen that happen in Massachusetts. So we haven't been testing for anything but what we've been testing for. If you remove the total yeast mold, but keep those others, which are really, Salmonella, E. coli, those are really indicators of poor handling as opposed to the growing practices. So if you have E. coli on your cannabis, you're probably just not handling it well. So again, yeah, so that's all you gotta do. Just remove total yeast mold, total viable aerobic bacteria, full stop.
So what were some of the aerobic pathogens, Escherichia coli, salmon, those are aerobic pathogens.
That's why you test species specific.
Okay, so that's important.
So there's, so
That's right.
in your protocol,
Right,
you have E. coli, salmonella, species specific.
Yeah.
You're saying keep
Right.
those.
Yeah.
You also have 2 categories, total yeast mold, total viable aerobic bacteria. Remove those.
what about Candida albicans under the yeast? So Candida,
Right, we're not testing specific, those aren't specific tests.
right,
Those are total yeast mold and total viable aerobic bacteria. No species.
so what I'm trying to get at is you're trying to advocate for species specific
The
testing.
ones that are
That's what I'm
on
trying
there.
to pull out.
Yes,
Just-
the ones that are on there.
Yes.
Yes, those species, test for those. All you have to do is take what you have and remove those 2. Then we're done.
Okay.
Yes, yes, I just want to acknowledge also our manager of lab and testing, Janine Paul, who is here. She has been one of our experts and has been at the commission a very, very long time. So I'm glad that you're here, and I know that this is dear to your heart, so thank you. Yes.
Thank you. I didn't know, I didn't see over there. Is there anything that you, at this point, any comments that you want to add? Question. Okay, if you do, raise your hand. If there are any times that you want to interject, let me know. Okay.
Any questions? All set?
Yeah, so I just, and where is, Matt? So Matt, I mean, a couple of comments. So Matt, you had said about the punitive fines, and you had cited an example about bar equipment, but I just gotta complete the story because that's like not the entire story. That we talked about that public meeting, it's part of a stipulated agreement. So it's public, I'm not sharing anything. There was pesticides on that equipment, so that's kind of, it's not that it's just bar equipment and they've got a punitive fine. So I just want to set the record straight that there was pesticides on that piece of equipment that then precipitated the fine. So when I hear you,
At an action level, that's currently below what is required. That action level is actually below what is now the action level, by the way, correct?
thank you.
Yes.
And then the other thing you had mentioned is about the samples and the quality control samples. And I agree, there is some confusion about that. Folks don't know. But it is in our regs for indoor and outdoor cultivators who are permitted. Quality control samples. A marijuana cultivator may provide quality control samples of marijuana flower to its employees for the purpose of ensuring product quality and determining whether to make the product available to staff. And then it goes on to talk about the aggregate amounts that you can give, that it needs to be recorded in metric. It needs to have the alphanumeric code applied to it and what employees. So there is a mechanism, it is in the, and as long as, if you want to do that, you have an SOP around it. I put that condition a lot for product manufacturers and indoor and outdoor cultivators. So it'll just have that there's an SOP around it in your quality control plan. So there is a mechanism in case that you did want to do that with your employee.
Right, we do that at my farm because we feel like we have a good understanding of regulations. So
Yeah.
we're comfortable sort of wading into that
Yeah.
territory with just no guidance. I think some of the difficulty for other business people is they may not feel that strong in sort of going head to head with their inspector and making arguments for what's allowed and
Okay.
what's not specifically. This is what I've heard from the outdoor,
Okay.
specifically with the quality control samples. When you go into metric, I think it's not clear. There's a drop down. There's nothing for like give out a sample, right? There's waste. Are we really wasting it? And so, yeah, I absolutely do that, but this is an area where a little bit of guidance would be.
It's important. So Matt, then what you're saying is A, more guidance around it would be helpful to the industry. And number two, if there was in the metrics platform itself,
Yeah.
that there was a way, so there's no way for you, any of you to be able to,
You can do trade sample, but there's no path to it.
Yeah, we have these,
okay.
I would do, how we do it at my farm is we have an SOP, so we know that it's compliant with company.
Yeah,
But what we do is it does kind of feel like a workaround because we go into package waste and we have to basically waste that and have another log that is separately saying, hey, this waste was actually.
you created that workaround, it wasn't really.
Yeah.
Yes,
So you waste it, you waste the product, and then you distribute it to quality control samples.
and I have a separate log that I keep with all that
Okay,
information.
okay,
and all that.
Marcus.
Matt, can you specifically send us that issue in a separate email
Yeah,
with the title and sort of explain it, and you can send it to all the commissioners?
yeah,
I can, but I also want to emphasize, this is sort of the low hanging fruit for us. It's definitely something regulars want to see, but it's not the kind of changes.
No, I know,
that we're-
you know, but if we get into it right now,
Yeah.
then we're gonna continue.
No, sure, I'll send that over.
yeah, no, that's a
Very, very tiny,
Yeah.
but I think it'll be helpful.
it'll be helpful, and that's the importance of this dialogue, is that you just unearth something that I wasn't aware of, we weren't aware of, that you guys have to do a workaround to be able to do that. So, thank you for that, and, okay, so let's go to
Big picture, we hear you.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's great to see you guys just, taking action right here now.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so now I see, Wilder Sparks.
I'm here to speak in Don. His name is Matthew Gray. I'm San Juan Cannabis.
Yes, Beth, we met before, and you now would say you're a veteran too, right?
So I am.
Yes, thank you for your service, thank you.
Thank you for it.
Thank
It was an
you.
honor.
Thank you, Chief.
Floor is yours.
Okay, my name is Matthew Gray. I'm the co-founder, veteran co-founder of San Juan Cannabis Alliance. We advocate for farmers, outdoor growers, cultivators, the majority of the people here in this room. We focus on policy reform, we focus on education, a lot of miseducation, also around the plant, and most importantly, community support. And that support so we can become financially prosperous. And help us support that you want to give us what we need. I'm not going to stand here and talk about what you already pretty much know based on the paper that you have. We've been to a few of our monthly meetings. Thank you for showing up. Monthly meetings and
Okay. This is a really good detailed,
yeah.
document.
Yeah, put that together, but I do have hope and faith based on that paperwork. We do get some changes made. And that's when you, based on the resources that you have, we only have, we have based on the conversation that we have come up in meeting. But I am going to refer you to page 5 of that paper. On that, you're going to see some graphs. And you pull information from your database that we have available to us. At the bottom, you see the average sale. It's self-explanatory. We're selling what isn't selling. What's above that is our average sale by year. Stacked by side, you're going to see a pattern emerge, and that pattern is stagnation. The stagnation has emerged because also in that chart is supply and demand. We have captured more supply, but we have more demand. That is a problem, but it's a good problem. Okay. Okay, what I am going to do here right now is take a quick second. And okay, everyone in the room. You already heard my name is Greg, San Juan Cannabis Alliance. So we don't have to stick and wait another couple of years for them to actually come together and have these conversations. I invite everyone in this room to SanJuanCannabisAlliance.com. Go to our website, go to events. Go ahead and put it into your calendar. We're going to have one at the end of this month on the 30th, Friday, the 6th at 6:30. So show up, have the conversation, be the voice, so we don't have to wait how many other years to sit in here or have a conversation and hopefully they'll do something about it. We have to be the voice, we have to be the change. With that being said, I'm going to do a good shoot right now. Once. This is the truth that we know based on the conversation that we have had. Okay, number one, we still have not received a reply from the trust fund, and I've sent 2 emails. So I'll send a third one after this, so that's letting them know that we've been unrecognized. Number 2, communities are being underserved based on the data and information that I pulled from your website. Number 3, from a growth perspective, I have an undergraduate degree and, a bachelor's degree in digital marketing. I'm pursuing my master's degree in business, so I know a little bit of what I'm talking about, demand exceeding supply. So we're being unable to access enough land to meet the needs, and we have the capability to meet the needs that we have for land. Number two, the cannabis plant is being prioritized based on its profitability, but on the other side, it's being used for its profitability, so they're raising the price on land. Lastly, policies and regulations aren't keeping up with the demand, therefore it's restricting us to actually have land to cultivate. The training protocols have been updated in almost 2 to 3 years. They need to be updated. Lastly, we need committee workers to these lands. I literally went down to City Hall, had a conversation with them. I was shunned out. I had a conversation with the Federal Bureau of Investigation. They don't know what the hell I'm talking. So, yeah, that's my time, and thank you for listening.
And thank you on that, but before you probably leave, Matthew, before you do the podium, and thank you, and sharing the challenges, right? It illustrates not everything falls under our purview, right? You had mentioned the social equity trust fund, that's not, although we communicate and partner, it's under the executive office of economic development. It's not under our purview. The local aspect of the land, again, so it's frustrating, right? Because there's things going on locally, right? Statewide and federally. And it's like, there's 3 different trains on different tracks. And it's like, how do we get them to come together? And I appreciate your frustrations. And we share them too. And you said something about updated training. Did you mean testing instead of training, or did you mean training?
Because based on the conversations that we have, and I wanted to meet someone, I believe her name was Carol. I don't know if she's here today, but she said the training protocol for her employees has been updated in 2 to 3 years. She said she was going to be here to get more information.
Okay, I need a little more RBT training. RBT training.
You ask us to basically pay for RBT training every year, but they're just taking the same course over and over.
Yeah.
What's the
Okay.
purpose? Why are we paying for it if it's the same thing?
Okay, thank you for that context. I may have any.
That's why we have.
Okay, Matthew. Thank you, Matthew.
All right, absolutely.
Thank you, Matthew. All right. I have Wilder Sparks for Mass Craft Cultivation.
Hi, my name's Robert Smith. I appreciate you guys being here and making yourself available. I want to say up front, I'm grateful that we're in an industry where public safety is being prioritized. Having worked in California in the medical industry, it's fast and big, truly. And I'm grateful. I do want to say that there's a lot of work that needs to be done if we want to make outdoor cannabis a viable economic pursuit that serves the communities where it takes place. Standards of testing currently go beyond what's needed to preserve health and public health and safety, as you've already heard. The prohibitively costly and stringent consequences for not meeting them are dire enough to discourage a lot of people who otherwise be involved. Excuse me. You've heard a lot of really sensible propositions. I know from these people about improvements in specific ways that these standards can be addressed. I asked that you give them genuine consideration. I wanted to discuss some ways in which these standards and their enforcement is shaping our industry. The overhead required to meet these standards and costs that they currently exist serve to exclude participants from our industry. In general, the people that excludes are people, in my view, who deserve to benefit from it. They're people who have made cannabis culture, technology, and methods what they are. And they've literally created the framework that everybody here benefits from. Long-time expert growers with skill sets produced. We see a lot of people who have these skill sets in this room, and I'm grateful to see that personally. A lot of people are being excluded because they can't work in the industry as it currently stands because they're being discouraged by the stringent and overly punitive regulations. I myself am a resident of LaPorte County in Massachusetts, Franklin County. And when I initially believed when recreational cannabis was made legal, we'd be in a position to utilize the resources that we have, which is land, farming know-how, and farming expertise. And I've seen firsthand efforts from local farmers in my community fall apart completely in the face of the restrictions that they currently stand. And that's a sad thing because it's something that could really empower what is the forest county in Massachusetts, and a lot of rural counties. We hear a lot about rural Massachusetts being left behind, and I think that's reflected here. Farming is how many of our rural communities survive, and to have a system in place where we can benefit from it would be huge for a lot of communities like mine. And I just want to say, if you bring these standards in line with the standards that are set and met by the same people who feed us, feed our communities, we can empower rural communities to produce a safe, high quality product using their expertise, and at the same time give the farmers in the communities where they live the opportunity to benefit, well, we benefit from their expertise. And I think that's something that's frankly needed in the current assignment. That's all I have to say. And thank you for your time.
Chris Bruce from High Plains Farm.
Hi,
Hi.
I'm Chris from High Plains Farm. Thank you guys for coming out to Western Mass to see us. Often I think we're forgotten about out here. Kind of like outdoor farmers, when these regulations are kind of drafted, it seems that most of these are written for big indoor facilities, mainly batch sizes and testing is one of my biggest concerns. Arbitrarily, the top of the plant is different from the bottom of the plant, so to pick 15 pounds out of 500 plants and say that's representative of everything, just it's kind of an arbitrary number.
Can I stop you right there?
Yeah.
What do you propose?
Per strain. Like, each batch would be like a harvest day, a full day worth of harvest. I have no specific number. I think one strain should represent, one plant should represent the whole strain. If it's strain specific testing.
As opposed to the 15 pounds.
Yeah, the 15 pounds, it isn't the same throughout it anyways. So I think it at 100 pounds. I the strain I think would make the most sense today. We could take a clone or a seed that generally grows the same, whether it's at the beginning of the row or the back of the row. So I think to pick one out of 7 grams out of 15 pounds really doesn't make sense. 50 grams out of a whole strain might make sense, and maybe there has to be some other way. Our biggest cost is labor, and it's estimate at this point. That's all I have for today. Thank you.
Okay, any, Kristen, thank you. If you give it more thought around batch sampling, batch sizes, please feel free to share it with us. I keep my interest there as well.
Yeah, I will.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Okay, next is Nick Rosati, High Plains.
So I'm Nick Rosati from High Plains Farm, one of the co-founders alongside of Chris, who was just speaking up here. And first and foremost, thank you to the commission again for doing this. Thank you to everyone listening for making it out, because there's obviously a lot of very important conversations that are happening here and happen. One of the top priorities on my list to speak about today was the microbial thresholds of testing, but that has come up repeatedly. And I know a good friend Megan Neighbor here is going to bring some very good scientific data to further that conversation and more eloquently articulated than I can. So a couple other things I'd like to bring up moving on for that, just to keep it within this 3 minutes of time. Sustainability. We're growing outdoors. We're using natural sunlight. Obviously, if we're outdoors, rainwater is getting into the plants. It's a real sustainable practice. One of the least sustainable things we deal with regulations, I'm going to say, it's metric tags. So if I grow 5,000 plants throughout the course of the year, that's 5,000 metric tags at 45 cents a piece, arguably about $2,500 after the cost of taxes and shipping associated with them.
Say that pricing.
45 cents a tag
Yeah.
times 5,000 tags plus the tax and shipping, $2,500 in metric tags. Every one of them is RFID. None of them are recyclable. So multiply me times every other indoor grower and outdoor grower in Massachusetts. That's a lot of RFID pieces of plastic ending up in landfill every single year. gonna ask me for a proposal, I'm guessing.
No. But I know metric, we've had talks, Commissioner Simmons and I have had meetings around sustainability, right? And it is an issue. And at one point, I know metric was doing a pilot with hemp derived tags. I don't know where that stands. I don't know if you guys have heard anything along those lines. I'd be highly curious. So we could have, biodegradable types of tag. But I know in thank you because your footprint is a lot less. You're outdoor cultivator, you're not using the lights on, just by the nature of how you're farming is more, environmentally friendly and sustainable. And I want to thank all of you for that. It's hard work. But yes, any proposals, and we have had some, Commissioner Simmons and I have had proposals where someone has proposed, tagging just the batch or tagging, right? So send us those ideas and those thoughts and, I think, Colorado moves that, right?
Exactly where.
Right.
Need, needs,
Okay, Maine, Oregon, and Colorado. So there's 3 states, I'd say within the last year and a half.
already sent you that.
It's already- Exactly. Alright.
That's exactly where. Even if it was cut down to every 10 plants or per strain per location, just think of the amount of waste we're creating right there. We're already getting every plant on camera, so if we're scanning a tag, you're then seeing, you have the ability to see that we weighed the amount of plants that were associated with that tag. So we're not losing anything in the fight of diversion and making sure everything is tracked in line eyes. It's all still there. And it's in our best interest, especially as I'm looking around the room and seeing all the small businesses that are here. Flower, plants, whatever, walking out our back door, that's putting us out of business. So I'm with you on that, that's a problem, but I don't think it would be. The other thing I want to bring up quickly, I think I'm running short on time here, is the badging of agents. And where I'm coming from on this is specific to outdoors in the fashion of we're farmers, we're trying to produce natural agriculture. An indoor facility was perpetually harvesting every 4 to 5 weeks. Let's say it makes sense. They have a harvest team that's always on their payroll, always in their labor, do other jobs and permitting and following that process through. We need our biggest labor force for 4 to 5 weeks out of the year come the time that it's time to harvest. It doesn't make sense the way it's set up right now for us to be able to hire people for 4 weeks out of the year, put them through the background checks, put them through the training, do everything that needs to do to have them for their 4 weeks and then redo it again the following year. My proposal on that would be to allow some of the staffing companies that are in this industry already, I believe United Green is the name of one of them, to badge people, put them through the training, and let us hire those people for the needs, timelines that we need them. And the way to do it would be to not have them have a badge that's specific to one license,
Yeah, right.
because that's where it falls apart.
So you're proposing the badge follows the
And
person.
it doesn't mean absolutely, yes, correct.
Yeah, okay. Nick, when are those 4 to 6 optimal weeks? What month, like tell on that?
September to October 15th.
Okay. Thank you, and I don't want to cut you off, so that more. Okay, thank you, Nick. Okay, Ben Sanders from Greenfield Greenery. I have 2 folks here, so Elizabeth Stanton from Greenfield, you too, I don't know if you want to.
Right, so my name is Ben from Greenfield Greenery. I just wanted to touch on the increasing batch sizes that you brought up earlier. So there seems to be a redundancy in testing and transfer requirements, especially between cultivators and manufacturers. We sell a lot of trim for distillate, and we have to test every 15-pound bag of trim before it goes out. To test 100 pounds, it costs about $1,000, which would be like up to 10% of our like final cost on the distillate material. I think that raising the pound limit on batches going from cultivation to manufacturing would make a lot of sense. It would help not only cultivators, but consumers and manufacturers. Another workaround would be dropping the pesticide testing requirement for transfers between cultivation and manufacturing. Oregon doesn't require pesticide testing upon transfer to manufacturers, just before it goes to the consumer or dispenser. So there's really no need for double testing other than just to protect manufacturers from contamination and things like that. To get around that, we could just test maybe once or twice per year for pesticides based on either square footage or grow rooms, things like that. A one-time test right before harvest that would just clear you to send full packages to manufacturers. I think one of those options would streamline things a lot for us and a lot of people in this room.
Thank you, Ben, and I think I was gonna ask this question, but I think you alluded to it. It's there to protect the product manufacturer. In other words, if you send
If it
over
was,
product that has somebody holding the bag, no pun intended,
Yeah,
right?
sure.
Who's like holding the bag?
that's where this law is convenient for everyone. However, just the cost burden for doing that for every 15 pounds is insane for this. Like, we really can't just give up 10% of our revenue for those kind of deals every time. I think that we could protect the manufacturer from pesticide contamination. Like I said, by doing a one-time pesticide test at the end of harvest before any of your batches go out. Everything could still be packaged into 15-pound test. It just wouldn't hold a $158 cost per. So either increase the batch size to 100 pounds or decrease the amount of pesticide tests per batch from cultivation to manufacturing.
Okay, so you're choosing a little bit, so after harvest, doesn't go out
Also, it's
randomly, everything, like the way you made it
we
sound.
send hundreds of pounds to individual manufacturers all the time, so instead of, packaging up 6 to 8 15-pound packages, paying $158 for each one before we send it out to the manufacturer, we could clear the whole lot with one pesticide test or a whole flowering room with one pesticide test.
Because they all get harvested at the same time, you're
Yeah.
able to do that.
Yeah. And if
So
it's
you're saying test the whole crop.
right,
Or strains.
or spring or 100-pound bags, just for a transfer from cultivation to manufacturers. The 15-pound makes sense for consumers. It just makes sure that everyone gets the right potency results, the right test results, everything else. But the transfer between cultivation and manufacturing is much.
How big is your canopy?
100,000 square feet.
Okay. So right now, what does it cost you yearly on average to do that?
Oh, I don't have the number in my head, but
Okay,
a lot, too much.
okay, it's too much, okay. And so what you're proposing is, instead of by smaller batches, do a randomized sample of the entire crop at one time, is that yours?
Yeah, it could be handled like soil testing where we have to test for every, 100 or 10,000 square feet of canopy, we get one pesticide test. I break it down that way, so it's not just one test that clears the whole farm, but fewer than, 10,000 tests or more that each cost $150.
Yeah, every 10,000 square feet of canopy, do a test, 150.
Yeah.
But,
Instead of for every 15-pound batch, just to clear something to transfer between cultivation and manufacturers. Oregon does this already. They use metric, and I don't really think it would be that difficult to implement any one of those 3 ideas in a similar fashion to Oregon. We're calling the OLCC and talking with them about how they did it.
and lastly, so it's September through October for you guys, your peak harvest. When in that life cycle, when in that time frame is the time to test?
Like right before plants come down. So this also applies to fresh frozen transfers. As it sits now, we have to test every 60 pounds of fresh frozen before it can be transferred offsite. A lot of facilities in Oregon just harvest right into like styrofoam containers, which are put onto frozen trucks and can be move to like large scale frozen storage. We're just using chest freezers right now, we can't do that. So it would also help cultivators for fresh frozen production, things like that. I'll write you guys an email, or add some notes to this.
Yes.
Just as an example, for his farm, if he takes down 20,000 pounds of fresh frozen, when we're 90,000, square foot facility, we took, I think, 18 or 19,000. So if you were to put it all to fresh frozen, that's, and you divide by 60, that's 333 tests, that's $50,000.
Plus,
I mean, think about it. Just think about that. Like, that's just money being thrown out for something that's going to get extracted, that it's just a waste of money. And then test it again after.
Right.
So we
Right.
extract, so like for us, for pesticides, like once, like for Ben, I know them very well, so like I'll know their stuff's not gonna have pesticides, and if it does, like we say, we take it on the top, we remediate it. There's about a million processes we can do in-house to get those out, tested and have to be clean.
The amount of extra cash that all of these people are being saddled with because of testing, licenses, all of that is, quite honestly, it's gonna put us out of business.
Yeah.
And it's putting a lot of people out of business, just to fill the coffers of the great state of Massachusetts.
And it's back to the CCC, or the state, fines, regulations, fees, and benefiting nobody. It's hampering the people that are trying to move ahead.
It's universal in this room.
I'm feeling it, I'm feeling it.
One quick point too, it's not just affecting the people in this room that already are working in the industry. All the phenomenal farmers at this stage and the nurserymen that have been growing plants in greenhouses and pots for decades, hundreds of years, generationally speaking, are afraid to get in this industry because all these testing and all this hurdles are really a big factor to trying to join this industry.
And Ben, before you didn't really talk about this, but I think Matthew did, and I need some clarification. So Matthew said there's not enough supply, but the demand is growing. I'm hearing the opposite. I'm hearing there's a glut of supply, in that we should use the relegation tool that we already have. So now I'm conflicted. I don't know, is there too much supply and the commission should force relegation, or is there not enough supply and we should continue to kind of just let it fly?
So it's too complicated of a question, but.
But that repeat that.
So
Yeah.
both statements are true.
Okay.
So for our case, like we're a year one farm, we just got our next operations in December. We're just on the market. We do certain on weed last year and it's mostly sitting. So we have an overabundance and we're having trouble finding the demand for it, but also there's so much new demand, especially for extract products like vape carts, and the price is going down and down and down. The example that I gave you before of, it costs $1,000 to test every 100 pounds of distillate. That's literally 10% of the revenue we get from that trade. So,
So total like almost $200 of transportation costs each way to test, on the way to test and on the way back. So it's not just $1,000, he's paying $200 each way for each of the 15 contacts.
and because we have, startup company, all of this, we're having trouble even meeting the demand that's required of us because we have to pay for all of these rounds of testing and transport just to get it out of the region. So it's a really complicated thing. I think that any one of those solutions that I offered would make a huge difference.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Matthew. Elizabeth.
Hi.
From Greenfield Greenery. Thank you, Elizabeth.
Thank you for listening. I'm CEO of Greenfield Greenery. We received our commenced operations license, and actually in January of this year, and we're at tier 11. The Sun Growers Cannabis Alliance is a good illustration that outdoor farmers of all stripes, not just cannabis farmers, often seek community to draw upon each other for help and solidarity, whether it is sharing equipment or knowledge, or in this case, presenting a united voice in advocating for the reforms that will improve the industry for everyone. My co-owner is an award-winning dairy farmer who draws on the cooperative support of the dairy industry in Western Mass. Since we received our commenced operations license, several local farms, including NACC, have generously helped propel us to the starting block in the race to the market. In this spirit, I would like to suggest, as someone else has already suggested, that workers badged as outdoor cultivators could register to work at more than one farm without having the employer having to go through the time and expense of badging. It's important that employees are trained and vetted and credentialed. However, given the seasonal nature of outdoor farming, there are work punches, as has already been expressed. So badging farm employees is time consuming and expensive. If I need 10 extra hands, it will cost me over $1,300 just to apply for those applications, right? Not to mention the time that is spent and the lag time in getting approved. Independent farms without multi-state field backing cannot absorb the cost of keeping full-time workers around. Perhaps there could be a mechanism for adding registration in addition to farm without having to keep cash. So I concur with that idea. Furthermore, as members of a right to farm community, we would like to urge the commission to consider following California by allowing licensed cannabis farms to operate farm stands in rural areas. We would like to be allowed to participate commercially in the many outdoor festivals such as Extravaganza, Bumpy Touch, and Turf Down Throwdown this weekend in Boston that allow home growers to sell their cannabis products locally. We thank you for your ongoing efforts to make the marketplace as fair and inclusive as possible. When we began our licensing journey 4 years ago, the price of cannabis was $14 per gram. It is now $5. However, the regulatory costs have only risen. This means, relative to the revenue currently available to us, the cost of being licensed has nearly tripled. We urge the commission to consider how the startup and ongoing costs of compliance for challenging producers to stay afloat.
Great. Yeah. Gloria Souza from the 600 Group.
Victoria Souza, I'm a probation manager at Suncrafted Worthless. First want to say thank you for your time. I'm going to kind of piggyback off of Ben's pesticide testing. I want to focus on vertically integrated farms such as ourselves with pesticide screening on fresh frozen. So as you know, fresh frozen gets then processed into a concentrate or distillate. Between that period of time, cultivation license would need to test for pesticides, averaging around $160 per 60 pounds. And in that time period, let's say 3 to 5 days, the product is just sitting in a fridge in a facility where the producer is also present. So as you can imagine, you're paying for your pesticides, waiting for testing to come back, and then they can touch the product, process it, and then at that point they retest it. So you're having a redundancy in this testing. And with that, you also you lose time. Production obviously is a schedule, and 3 or 4 days can make a huge difference. And that's really it. I feel like Ben did a great job at overlapping that.
That was very straightforward. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next I have Cheryl McGuire from Stafford Green Inc.
I appreciate y'all being here.
Oh, thank you.
Brandon is here as well.
Thank you.
Brandon Green, we're in Chester, Mass. For Tier 5 cultural cultivation. Nick has already brought this up as well as a lot of other people in this room. Want to deal with the agent registrations. Our season runs from May 1st through October 31st. And the month of May, we're just setting up the grounds. We don't have any product on site, we don't have any seeds on site. So we're setting up the pots, grading the field, setting the pots up and setting up irrigation for the pots. We have no well water, we have no public water, we have to bring in 2 5,000 gallon water tanks, plus a 3,000 gallon water tank. Bring the town planning here. Anyway, moving beyond that is I want to give you a little tidbit of our agent registration. We started with 8 people. They were all registered this year. We have 1 left. One of them, out of the 8, the 7 left, we have one that wants to return because she went on to another dispensary and she hated it. So she wants to come back. Meantime, I surrendered her agent registration card. She's coming back in 2 weeks and I have to re-register her again. Do the whole process. Not only do we have to register them, she's going to do the RBT training again, we have to order her again. Those are all fees that we have to keep putting out there to stay in compliance. Nick touched on that as well. Yes, that's about, because everyone said a lot of things that I've already wanted to say. So I would appreciate the commission if they could take the indoor versus the outdoor, and because I know it's a gray area there, if they could separate the indoor outdoor process, registration process.
Oh, okay, I see that. Okay, I see what you're saying.
Why, we pay $117.50 for the agent registration, $45 for the RV training, and $25 for a background check. So that would save us a lot of money if we could keep that card and let them work out the facilities as well. So, paying, but that's the same person again. And someone touched on, I believe it was Dan, touched on how he has the manufacturing and the cultivation, where he has to obtain a license to it. So I'd appreciate it if the commission could take a look at that.
I show hands, how many of you want us to look at that? Yeah, that's what I thought, I just seen that. Yeah, everyone in the budget, or, yeah, that's right. Well, Cheryl, Fran, thank you, it's always great, very sorry, Fran, oh, sure, okay.
I like to broach a topic that is not in the purview of the CCC, something that I experience all the time. I went to a dispensary on a sales mission, and the people in there are very excited about seeing us and looking at our COAs, and our prices are way down compared to what they pay for. And then I emailed the person above them that isn't there that can make a decision. And I get back an email. Well, we don't have room on our menu for an outdoor product. So I think there's a great deal of prejudice in the consumers between outdoor and indoor. Now, our THCs are right there. Our and our COAs are pure. And I know everybody here has been talking about pesticides and whatnot. Soil testing, we don't even have to do that. We've got all pots, 35-gallon, 45-gallon pots. So last year, we were mostly we're dependent on rainwater. We do have that $3,000 tank, and we mix it up, and that's where we put the nutrition, and then we irrigate as needed. But we can really make a lot of product. Last year's product, we still have half of it. And I've been around all these dispensaries to get this same answer. And I've gotten a couple of new accounts, and these are people that really want to make a profit. But there's so much fear in the whole industry. And you talked about flooding. Right now, the old economic maxim of supply and demand, I don't think it's applying. I really don't. Because we could go in and sell, and people can make a profit, a good profit on what we have. We have 3 or 4 dispensaries where they really want to make a profit. And some of these other menus are just completely frozen. And that's what we're getting for feedback. Consequently, we'll definitely sell bulk, we'll definitely sell extraction material, whatever it takes. But what I believe, it's not in the CCC purview, but there's a marketing issue here, and there's a prejudice over this product as opposed to the input product.
And Fran, it's always nice to see you, and thank you so much. And so that's the first I'm hearing that, honestly. So can you just, why is there a stigma or prejudice for outdoor grown cannabis? I heard that.
Well, I do think that the MSOs are promoting it because they have to protect their interests. But this Berkshire Eagle this morning has a front page story on Temescal. They're being evicted from their big building on Route 8 in Adams, North Adams. And they all are being sued for, I forget what it is in there, $1 million something. And they put $20 million into that building. And we know some of our people have left to work there, and then they're not gonna be working there. I don't know where this is going, but it's in Superior Court. We had another, vendor in, Westfield, completely closed. We ended up, he owes us $18,000. You know, all we can do is get our attorneys to put us on the list in case he ever comes back from the dead. At least we'll have a claim. But I don't know, this is the kind, the industry itself, to me, is in a great deal of flux. And we can survive by doing what we need today, right now, and not projecting too much of where it's going. But I can see a big, big shape out coming here. And that's what I want to be able to endure until we do get to a point where it's reasonable. But I would challenge anybody here to tell me that an indoor product is superior to what we're producing, because it isn't. You know, our son, who's an expert on this cultivation, he calls the indoor product synthetic. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Fran. Okay, Jared Landsberger, debilitating medical treatment. Okay. All right, it's Jared comes in later. We have Frank Follett from Regenerative LLC.
The two of us, that's okay.
Okay.
My name is Cameron. Thank you all for your time, everyone. A lot of what I wanted to say was kind of already touched upon. There were just two things. One, right now, I know there's a regulation where cultivators can package their own products. Sort of as Ben touched upon, a lot of them have, especially right now, failed material from biomass that essentially they can't really do anything. So right now, like a lot of it gets sent to us or other manufacturers, and it's bought for really, really cheap. It would be, I think, amazing if they had the ability to also package manufactured products we made, such as concentrates, the same way they can package flour. So as long as they're not altering anything or changing anything at all, I don't see why they wouldn't be able to take back, say, a jar of concentrate and just put it in a, CR box and then ship it out. With how everybody's struggling for cash, would make a massive difference, like with everyone's pockets. Right now, they essentially have to pay us for all the labor, all the boxing, and then to hold it and then distribute it for them. It takes a lot of money away from these guys.
You're talking this delivery operator?
No, I was talking, so if, for instance, if one of these cultivators sent us material, we have a cultivation and manufacturer, and we turn their biomass into, say, shatter, butter, distillate, anything. They can't take it back right now. And in my opinion, if they can package flour, why couldn't they package that? As long as they're not altering it in any way.
I see what you're saying. So you want to revert it back to the cultivators to repackage?
Correct. I think that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're trying to build their brand.
Can I just do a point of order?
Yeah.
The room gets a little noisy, so if you want to add anything, just raise your hand and I'll call on you. So it seems like you have.
I'm with them.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, okay.
All I was just saying is they have a brand to grow also. And right now, if we have to package, they either have to send their packaging to us, so to pay to get their packaging to us, for us to put it in there, pay for us to do that, when they already have employees that can do that at their own facility.
It's like, yeah, we make a lot of extra money, sometimes it's great, but it's not fair. I don't think it's fair.
Yeah, remind us the name of your business?
Oh, we're regenerative. I'm not Scritch.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, and then one more thing I wanted to bring up with sort of the concentrate thing was just the PTM testing limits. Right now, the butane's at 12. The limit of detection and even the limit of variability in a lot of these labs is 12 or greater. Which actually means not a single butane test in the state is valid. There's a variance of 15 and there's a limit of 12. I don't understand that for one. But also the lowest state in the country, I like a huge factor, the closest is 500, the highest is 5,000. The other thing that I don't understand is there are things like acetone and significantly more harmful products like nail polish remover, but I could leach in there. And it would pass testing, that's totally fine. So I would really ask for that to be relooked at and maybe structured similar to California and Colorado, markets that are established and have health data on consuming these products for a decade or more. And that, I guess that'd be my third.
Hello, everyone. Good morning.
Morning.
Just want to thank you guys for, obviously being here, putting this together. My name is Craig Gillette. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Regenerative. We have the 10 outdoor cultivation in Uxbridge. We also have a product manufacturing in do quite a bit of product manufacturing for a lot of cultivators, specifically outdoor cultivators, because we, hold that near and dear to our heart. And we try to help as many outdoor cultivators as possible, get their products to the market. The main things I'm gonna be talking about is testing. A lot of this has already been brought up, but MDR approved, a new list of products that we can use. And, if a lot of these products, if we use them, we will likely fail microbial and yeast and mold tests. And I think it's a contradiction to the regulation. And, I think it definitely needs to be changed. I know it's been talked about, maybe we go to a pointed system where, we test for specific things. But a broad spectrum, it's not feasible. MDR says we can spray one thing, and then if we do, we're gonna fail for testing. So.
And I know Megan's here, and thank you, Craig. But if we went to like that menu of testing specific, whether by strain or by pathogen, wouldn't that be a more expensive test? Because now I don't know the answer, so, okay, thank you.
No, I don't think it would be more expensive, and especially if we eliminated the Varroa bacteria, the total yeast and mold, that would even out, so it would be the same.
Okay.
Because those tests are, and I'm sure people on board, those tests are very stringent and take a lot of time and you have to be very careful. I'm sure she'll speak.
It depends on what the lab is currently using. If they're relying on a lot of plating systems and they have to move to PCR, then that is a big added expense and time, and they have to get that validated, accredited. But if we had time to adapt, they should even help.
Okay.
Additionally is, I know it's kind of got brought up by some people about pesticide testing and bringing stuff, from an MC license to an MG license. I feel their pain. We brought down 20,000 pounds last year of fresh rows. We had to test every single 60-pound batch per strain. So, if we have 30 pounds left over, that has to get tested separately as well. I think, at some point, either, increasing limits, or if you have a good track record, or you hit a certain threshold where, hey, you haven't, popped the pesticides for 100 tests, now you can go to this higher threshold. Because, it's like good behavior. With obviously our name, regenerative farming practices, we try to implement as many as possible, but with the testing regulations, it is difficult. So, again, I'll just advocate for a single license, that stays with the employee. Like we said, you get one batch each registration. We're gonna get one for our NP and MC. We have a lot of people on the MC side that literally work for 4 hours and quit. We got people that work for a week and quit. So it's very difficult, and it's very time consuming for the HR department to keep on keeping up with all this stuff. I got one last thing, and just fines, the one that we're talking about where, the fines for an outdoor, I personally believe that, fines should only be assessed, for people that show severe gross negligence. And, borrowing a piece of equipment maybe was the wrong thing to do, right? And they didn't test it, but I don't see that as severe gross negligence. And I think that's the only way that fine should be assessed.
Define severe gross negligence.
Yes.
Define it.
Define it.
Gross negligence is you knowing 100% what you're doing and it being wrong, like literally taking pesticides and spraying them on your crop. Someone borrowing a piece of equipment or hands basically popping for pesticides, I don't think it doesn't meet the standards for negligence. You have to knowingly be doing something that's wrong.
I guess to be to prove intent, but.
I understand, but it's like I borrowed a piece of equipment, didn't test it, and I got a fine for this. Now, should they have tested it? Probably, but that'll be it. Thank you.
All right, Dave. Thank you, Fred. Okay, next time we have Liam Sullivan from High Hawk Farm.
Hi. So I'm Lynn Sullivan. Here as the Director of Cultivation for High Nut Farm. Which for reference is the farm in question. And this,
Okay.
the rumored positive pesticide test, the big find, which borrowed equipment. I think the key takeaway from that is what Suhiko mentioned, which is that if that incident had happened today, none of us would be talking about it. I'm happy to be here. There's also a large part of me that wishes I wasn't.
Yeah.
You know, I've been farming for my entire life since I was born. I'm in my 20th season now, growing produce in the Pioneer Valley. That's what I do. I have also run a certified raw milk dairy at the Northfield Mount Herman School in Gill, where for reference to the laboratory testing, I was teaching teenagers from all around the world how to milk cows. And that milk was going into our bulk tank that the state would come and test every month. Now, ours was small, it was 3 cows, but that bulk tank could be 40 gallons, it could be 4,000 gallons. The protocol is the same. And this is still happening today. The state tests the milk for things like E. coli, everything else. And to me, and I think a lot of reasonable people, there's a huge potential risk to public health there, right? If you drink raw milk that's contaminated with listeria, you might die. I was teaching kids how to do that job. And if we failed once, they'd say, hey, you failed. We're gonna come test it again. If you failed twice, they'd say, hey, you failed twice. The people are still drinking the milk. The same boat there. Failed within reason, right? Not failed to such an extent that it's an imminent public threat. They need to be shut down. But you have so many coliform units per gram of E. coli in the milk, we're testing it again. Happens again, we're testing it again. Still in operation. It happens 3 times, you're shut down for a month, we're gonna test you twice this month. Very reasonable, very evident of the true spirit of Massachusetts in which state agencies support local businesses, entrepreneurs, farmers, such as myself. I studied agriculture at UMass. And I've always been extremely grateful to be in this state and receive the support that we receive. You know, we lead the nation in direct farm to consumer sales. That's a big deal. Like, we are an example around the country. And independently, when I read the regulations, you know, as a longtime cannabis enthusiast, yeah, I'd love to grow weed. I looked at the rules and I said, no way. It's not possible. And I think a lot of people today look at it and say, no way, it's not possible. But with it, you know, the enthusiasm of family and friends and people, other people who really made it happen, I supported it, and we're still doing it. You know, we're on the brink. We were tier 11, we're tier 3 now, and this is entirely community run. Like, we made this happen, and because of that positive pesticide result, we couldn't do business for 2 years, even though, I mean, we all know how much it costs to get this business. So we're on the edge right now, and like hearing the language and the story and our story retold, it's a little bit frustrating to me because I saw the attitude of the commission, I saw the attitude of the pesticide department at MDR, which is, you know, a lot of people with a background in law enforcement and not science. It was very prosecutorial. You know, I've been a certified pesticide applicator in the state for 20 years. The farm I'm associated with has been around since 20. You know, we've shipped like 1,000 CSA shares to Boston every week. We feed a lot of people. And to hear the attitude of the commission all along, it's honestly, from my perspective, it's like, if that's how you feel, just shut us down. If it is a risk to public health, it's kind of like a decision without a decision. Luckily, we got through it with finders and juice. I'm not mad at it, but it's just been professionally, personally, and financially devastating. We all go through that in life as farmers and entrepreneurs, so it's nothing new for us. We're not going to stop, but it did leave a bitter taste of doing business in Massachusetts. But it's, you know, it was a significant effort to make this happen, and we'd like to continue to do so. So I think those are my only really pertinent points as like a point of reference. I'd be happy to answer questions about that.
Well, Liam, I just want to say I appreciate you sharing story on the challenges. And that's why we're here. to hear them, to see what we can do as a body, without jeopardizing public health, safety, or welfare. That makes sense, right? A previous commissioner told me once that they made them really strict for a reason, so that we could evaluate and evolve as the industry evolved. So, you know, that's where we're in this inflection point right now, and we're trying to tackle these things. You know, delivery, the delivery license type, the telehealth, micro businesses, chapter 180, and, you know, we talked about the low hanging fruit, some of the things we can do, but, you guys are what keeps the supply chain supplied. And, you know, it's on us, not only to hear your challenges, but to figure out what makes sense moving forward to if there's anything that we can, change the body, alleviate something that's maybe too onerous, that made sense at the time, that maybe doesn't make sense anymore, to look at other jurisdictions. Many of you have said Colorado, Oregon, some other jurisdictions. And we're gonna do all of that, and it's important. So this conversation is important, and I hear recurrent themes, the badging and the microbial testing and the total release and mold and the total aerobic testing. And thank you. I just want to thank you, and I'm sorry that your family had to go through this, but unfortunately, I think we're all, you know, we borrow equipment, test it, right? We learn a lesson, it's opportunity to move
I
forward.
haven't learned any lessons practically.
No.
Not really this,
Yeah.
Trying to move this forward.
Right.
I think the onus is on the state to make this happen. And frankly, from my perspective, and given what I shared with you about my experience with raw milk, like,
Yeah,
in that instance, there's a clearly demonstrated potential public risk to public health.
yeah,
And I get that.
yeah.
With recreational cannabis, I mean, is there any example of a significant risk to public health that has come out?
Well, the Valley crisis with a lung, popcorn lung, which was the materials in the,
Yeah, but that has nothing to do with.
I just asked if there was, no, but you said.
Is there any real example of, you know, and with raw milk, there's countless examples. With meat,
Right.
there's countless examples. With produce, there's
Yeah,
countless
this
examples.
calls all the time across the country, and different cucumbers.
I fail to see the reason.
Yeah.
It's all just been copy and pasted from the DPH's standards for medical marijuana, which was
Yeah.
a long time ago. Medical marijuana is way different. I think there should be a distinction.
You did.
So way different market. Yeah, we've also been growing tobacco for years in the valley, and there's registered products for that. It's another product that people choose, you know, in the case of smoking, to light it on fire and inhale it. I mean, obviously there's risks inherent to the plant there.
Right.
But
Okay, so,
I think that's all I think.
okay, I was saying,
Speak to that.
okay, yes.
I should say thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah.
Happy to be here.
Yeah, no, but thank you just for your transparency and being so honest. And,
Okay,
yeah, no. I'm glad we're here today. I think the difficult part of this job is that we as like the second court of commissioners are now looking at the dredge, right? You said it, and what works and what doesn't work. It's my own personal opinion, we're a little too late, right? Within the market right now, there's too much hurting. And it keeps me up at night, you know, and there's only certain things that we can do and look at. But I'm so glad that we're here today, and I know that we're committed. You see 3 of us, there's 2 missing, but we're committed to it, and I'm glad that, you know, our expert is also in the room as well, because, you know, when we met with the folks, Commissioner Concepcion and myself, just around this, you know, we wanted to make sure that this happened, because it hasn't happened. I've been at the commission for years. We've never had this conversation around outdoor polluters. I've talked about it. Commissioner Roy and I had talked about it. So I think it's time. Otherwise, a lot of folks are going to go out of business. So I really appreciate you guys just being honest, being patient with us. And I'm hopeful, I know things take time, but I'm hopeful that some of your best practices, because you are experts in this. More than us, we're policymakers. We're hearing you all, and then we're going back and figuring out what works and doesn't work. So I just want to say thank you. I'm excited that we're having this conversation. And, you know, to like my fellow commissioners, I hope that, you know, we can possibly at our next public meeting, sort of debrief publicly in terms of this conversation, or the meeting after, in terms of next steps and what does that look like. And I know that's more for later, but because we're allowed to talk to each other right now on this, I want to just say that, because I think you guys have all said it, thank you for, being in this industry and being farmers, and I know the excitement that people had, and there's no excitement anymore, there's no joy in cannabis, right? People have forgotten the culture and what it really means to really be part of it. So I just wanted to say that because I hear you and I've heard everyone. So thank you, and I know there's more folks who want to speak, so. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
My name is Eric Williams. I am COO of Canopy Divisions. We are an employee-owned company. We have both indoor and outdoor cultivation just a few miles down the road with Sheffield. I wanted to be here today to show my support for the struggles that especially large-scale outdoor cultivation have. There's nothing that's been said today that I disagree with, so I want to just throw my thoughts behind that, my support behind those as well. I did want to just add a few other points though. One, remediation has been brought up. The economics of remediation just make it unviable across the board, especially given all the numbers that we said today. And also considering that it now would be a more expensive product with much less value on the market. So remediation really is no longer a solution to anyone. The batch sizing as well is just, it's never made sense whatsoever, especially since I'm tracking batches. They're going into the same rooms or into the same rows, same day being harvested, the same day. Just this past week, and despite all our planning, getting to those perfect 15-pound batches is really difficult. Just this week, I've had to pay cut for 2 different tests, one for 786 grams and one for a little over 800. Because I was over 45 pounds plus. They were the same batches on the same benches, same room, same harvesting. It just doesn't make sense. Further, with the batch sizes for fresh frozen, similar to the fact that edibles limits don't make sense relative to the other limits, fresh frozen batches size doesn't make sense relative to the 15 pounds. If anything, if it was brought more in play, it would be about 125 pounds per batch that comes from there. The RVT training as well has been brought up for cultivation. I'll tell you that all of my team, they look at it. I do their RVT every year, and I've done it 5 years in a row now. It makes no sense and is not relevant whatsoever to cultivation. It just is not. So I think that really needs to be looked at in a big way. And then another part is, maybe I'm disagreeing with someone in this room, I'm not sure, but for me, and I'm vertically integrated, so I'm buying product on the market as well as growing it. There is definitely an oversupply. There is definitely an oversupply on the market right now. Lastly, what I'd like to bring up, and I don't know about others here, but I certainly lose an awful lot of sleep over this, and I know it's not in your purview, but I think that we could all use your help. Mosquito spray that's being done out there. Every year I go to, I've got great relationships with all of my neighbors that I've had to cultivate over the years. But it is a ticking time bomb for anyone out there. If they're not getting all of their neighbors to opt out of the spraying, that's your crop's gone. Your crop's absolutely gone if they get any of that testing, because there's no way to come back from that. Once you've got those pesticides from mosquito net spraying, that just would put someone out of business. And there actually was one company that lost an entire crop last year locally here because of spraying by one of their neighbors.
I was right there. I never heard that before. But mosquito spraying, they say stay indoors. It's really toxic to humans. So you're proposing what?
Some help with I believe it's the DEP that's been doing that, does the spraying. They send out letters. I'm sure everyone here has gotten them. They send out letters that you opt out with. Yeah, you opt out.
Neighbors opt out too.
Yes, you gotta get the neighbors to opt out too. So, I mean, I'm surrounded by other farms as well. And again, with our relationships, we have the conversations about if they're doing any kind of spraying, we've had them adjust the other pesticides and herbicides that they're using on their farms as well. they'll shut down all their events and we will just mark their stuff and then we got them to change their schedules so I can do a crops. Not risking it, so.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks for your time. Yeah, so, okay, so I just, yeah, so we have this room till around 1:00, but, oh, we have more time? Okay, so it looks like there's probably about 12 more folks that want to speak, so, I'll try to limit. I've been asking a lot of questions and just to keep us moving, I'll try to limit that, so the next person is Julie,
Boschman.
You're happy arms, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Good afternoon, commissioners. Thank you so much for giving me the space to speak. My name is Julie Boschman and I am currently the closest to achieving operations for a craft marijuana cooperative license in Massachusetts. We are located on a 3rd generation vegetable farm in Whately. And our mission is to encourage sustainably grown cannabis by providing the outdoor growers with logistical support services, really allow them to focus on growing and creating a competitive crop for the space. I really want to commend the commission, its advisors, and Mr. Dave DeWitt sitting behind me for making the craft co-op license possible. It's really an important first step to supporting the local agricultural community.
First in the country, that's a license for farm.
Co-ops are designed to embody teamwork, resource sharing, and equitable opportunity, all of which I think everyone in this room can agree we need a little more in this industry. With the current restrictions to transportation of unfinished product, as well as the onerous testing fees imposed on farms, cooperation and resource sharing are nearly impossible. I'm really personally terrified given the fines that Tide Hawk and Matt Allen have seen with their farms with really accidental, unforeseen things that where they tried to really mitigate their costs, borrow equipment, which is really only the way that these farms are going to be able to survive. And I also want to speak to the carbon footprint aspect of the industry. So I think we deserve regulations that reward transparency, taking proper action, and contributing to sustainable practices. My background is in the renewable energy space, and in Massachusetts, there are additional incentives given to building projects on disturbed land, brownfields, and gravel pits. And I would love to see the commission consider implementing either reduced fees or priority status for the outdoor farms because they are reducing the carbon footprint in the space. So yeah, I think that's all I want to say. I want to give operators more time to speak.
Okay, thanks. Thank you. John Ferguson, Green Valley Analytics.
Good morning. My name is Jonathan Ferguson. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Green Valley Analytics. We're an independent testing lab located in Holyoke, Mass. First, I just want to say thank you, Acting Chair Roy, Commissioner Stebbins, and Commissioner Camargo for being here, and the Sun Growers Alliance for putting this all together. We have apparently some really important things to discuss here today. All are going to have significant impacts to the outdoor cannabis farmers in Massachusetts. So it's no secret there are some ongoing challenges in this industry regarding microbial testing. It's only exacerbated for outdoor growers who are held to the same standards and action limits as their indoor cultivating peers. Such action levels, yeast and mold, for example, were written into the regulations as a means of protecting the health and well-being of medical patients, and at the time were very appropriate for someone who might be immune compromised. These limits, however, have put quite a heavy burden on the cultivators, as you've heard today, especially the outdoor farmers. This well-intentioned limit has had several unintentional effects, including, but certainly not limited to, cultivators seeking out labs with questionably low failing rates for flower, 0 to 3% versus the national average of 13%. Additional standardization of testing methods, along with the reconsideration of yeast and mold action limits, would do a great deal to not only level the playing field between testing labs, but also provide the outdoor cultivators with an improved means of competing in the market with integrity and pride for their sun-grown products. I've been a daily weed smoker for 25 years. I've used it to treat everything from ADHD to anxiety to depression. I also have family members that have been able to use specific cannabinoids to help with appetite stimulation during chemotherapy. I fully believe in the power of the plant and its ability to help millions of people around the world deal with everything from PTSD to cancer. That's why I wanted to get into this industry in the first place. To be able to participate in a new emerging industry, doing something I wholeheartedly believe in, to help bring a safe, natural medicine to the community in Massachusetts is a dream come true. I've been a consumer for 25 years, but only of the regulated industry's products for several years. I have undoubtedly, along with probably everybody in this room, consumed cannabis that would fail miserably if it were tested in our lab today. Action limits are a necessary part of keeping people safe, but rigorous limits, like 10,000 CFUs per gram for recreational use, in my opinion, are overly restrictive and only hurting the chances of these farmers' success for their outdoor farms, who, in my opinion, are some of the best growers in the state. Without them, there'd be a serious hole, as you pointed out, in the supply chain for quality sun-grown cannabis for the people in Massachusetts, along with the manufacturers. So let's take Michigan, for example, where they have different allowable limits for recreational and medical. 100,000 CFUs versus 10,000. I think that would be more than appropriate for the commission to consider. In short, organically grown products grown using traditional farming methods should be subject to reasonable action limits for microbials, limits that do not drive cultivators to lab shop, and ultimately make decisions on what lab to use based on unrealistic fail rates. A reasonable increase in certain microbial limits, along with maybe some testing method standardization, would be a great starting point to help protect the outdoor farmers while still protecting the health and well-being of the patients and consumers in the country. Thank you so much for your time.
Oh, you're the first one I was waiting for all day. You're the first one to bring up pollen forming units. I hadn't heard that. And I've heard in the past where I guess we are probably the most stringent in the country or close to it at 10,000. And other states have gotten to 100,000, right? So what I heard you say is you think that CFUs should be different for adult use. They should have that limit of 100,000 and keep it at 10,000 for medical. Is that what I'm hearing?
I think if you're immune compromised or if you have an autoimmune disorder, and that's where the medical, regulations were written around, I think that's perfectly fine. You'd want to be able to, as a cancer patient or somebody undergoing radiation, be able to find those products that are tested at a higher standard. But what you're doing is you're cutting the legs off of all of the people that are sitting in the room. And I see it on a daily basis when samples come into the lab. And it's a really tough conversation to have when you know somebody's a local farmer, they've been doing it for years, and they're relying on a passing result in order for them to stay afloat. And I have to make that phone call almost, on a regular basis. So we ride the waves of success and failures with our customers, with these cultivators. It's a much easier phone call to make when they have a passing result.
But I also hear the people in Martha's Vineyard when we went out there. And there's no emphasis, there's almost 300 medical patients and there's no MTC there. And they have to go to adult use. And if the standard is different because they're literally on an island with no access to a medical treatment, what do those people do?
There's 8 million people in Massachusetts. You're gonna make a law for 300 people on an island.
I'm sorry.
There's 11 million people in Massachusetts. You're gonna make a special law for 300 people on an island. It's just like allowing people to sell, taking an entire CCC meeting to discuss whether you can sell lottery tickets because one guy asked for it.
So point of order, if you could raise your hand next time, I appreciate that. But those people's health are not less important than the 7 million other people in the state. And that was the point I was making. But show again.
Jeff, thank you for those comments. I just want to add, and I mentioned his name to the record again, Sherman Olin. He's not the only one, but he's done a lot of research. And what I'm referencing here is if you actually look at the literature, and again, I'm not offended into science, but if you look at the literature, then the only time we've ever seen an actual causal connection, and it was really loose, is some of the literature around people who already have lung conditions with autoimmune deficiencies with aspergillus. And specifically with vaping, because generally speaking, combustion kills most of the pathogens. Aspergillus is the only pathogen in the entire literature on cannabis and lung health. You can look at tobacco, you can get some insights from that, but it's the only place that we've seen a connection. Aspergillus, immunocompromised, and vaping, not combustion. So I think we also have to reframe this context. If somebody's immunocompromised with lung conditions, there's a trade-off to combusting anything into your lungs. Full stop. And the thing that you can sanitize a cannabis to now make something that's already has intrinsic properties that create a trade-off and sanitize it to make it healthy is a complete misframing of the entire conversation. So again, total yeast mold, total viable aerobic bacteria, there is zero connection between those two tests and public health, not one. People get on LinkedIn and they're all, they're all sanctimonious, they want to protect the consumer and all this kind of stuff. I think they want to protect the world, I'm saying, I don't know. But at the end of the day, I'll say again, it's about the connection between causal harm and a test. And I love the meme where somebody's looking at a lamppost, right? Dark room and dark street. They're looking for their keys in a light post and said, well, is that where you lost your keys? They're like, no, but that's where the light is. And that's how we test. Because it's the only test we have, you might as well test for something, even if it has no relationship to public health. So total yeast mold, total viable aerobic bacteria, erase those from the protocol and we're good.
Yeah.
I just have one comment about the islands, like, so for people that do live on the islands, I know it's a very small fraction of our population. It'd be great if we could get some, I know people have been asking regulations of how to get our product there legally.
Yes.
We can't look at an outdoor cultivation in the island at all, there's no zoning for any outdoor there at all, so.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Marco.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring us back because I know that there's folks speaking, but there's still folks on the list.
Yeah.
If you're here and you have not raise your hand, we just want to see.
Yeah, I got it. Okay, Ryan? Am I saying that right? Ryan?
Maybe not here.
RIAK, it's like, okay. Grant Ellis.
Hello, Commissioner, Madam Chair, thank you very much for the time today. So I'll begin by saying, first, I think you should listen to your licensed applicants. I think they know the struggles they're facing. I think they've outlined a lot of these issues. What I think can be helpful is to think about what can be implemented via sub-regulatory guidance documents, what's going to take formal regulatory revision, what would take changes at the statute. If you break down all of these issues into those three boxes, you can assign action items and then assign priorities. And some of this stuff I think can get done fairly quickly. For the record, on the product sample issue, so there's an outstanding ambiguity, I think, as to whether that 28 grams of flour applies in aggregate to all staff or on a per staff basis. Now, I know the framers of that statute, of that language, which was Commissioner Flanagan, which was 28 grams per staff member per month, 7 grams, 7 different strains, 4 grams per strain. So I think that's something the commission should look into, because from what I understand, staff have interpreted it, commission staff, to be 28 grams of flour in aggregate across all of the staff of the cultivator, which doesn't make sense. But pulling this back on the testing conversation, which I think is perhaps the most important component of this. Limits don't matter if there is lab fraud occurring. If you change the limit for total yeast and mold from 10,000 colony-forming units per gram to 100,000, like they did in Maryland, you're just going to see total yeast and mold results that are like 99,999. The mold isn't learning to stop being counted, then it's fraud. So really the question has to be, how is the fraud occurring and what can be done to ward it off? There's no discipline, perhaps more so than economics, that has more conflicts of interest than cannabis testing. I've never seen anything like it in my entire life. Both parties involved in the transaction are clients to each other and have an incentive to undermine the integrity of the testing process to inflate their profits. Does that mean that all testing should be so onerous as to undermine the ability of unwilling participants to engage in the market? No, but we cannot sit here and say there's never been any negative consequences for the production of this dangerous cannabis. Someone died in this state at a regulated operator because of the growing conditions. One sample passed at under 10,000 CFUGs and retested at 490,000 CFUGs. Something's seriously wrong, and the fundamental fix is going to come from how the standardization of testing methodology is implemented. You can standardize inclusion and exclusion lists on a per methodology basis. That's not that hard. You can standardize other aspects of this too, but it won't matter if the people implementing the actual testing methodologies have a conflict that induces fraud. That's what's going on. I don't know how we're going to fix it, but absent some kind of systemic change to the monetary incentive in the testing process, it's going to be broken. But yes, listen to farmers. Oh, yes. Also, farmer equity program like 935 CMR 500 10517. That was a regulatory change before it was implemented in statute. Farmer equity program would be wonderful. Then we can do a farmer equity grant fund, give me like 2 years.
Okay, Grant, thank you. Is there H. Thorne and A. Thorne from okay. Yeah. Okay.
I'm Heidi Thorne. Thank you so much for coming out and listening to us. I'm not a cultivator. I'm going to speak about something that I think is across the board for all of us, and that is the inspection of our sites and how it is not very streamlined. I've spoken to many of other people, and kind of a joke, but not really a joke. We never know when we're coming around. And, oh, there's the CCC, and I would love that if we could work together as a team. I want to be a team. I want to follow the rules. I follow every single one of those rules to the best of my ability. And I would like my people that are going to come and inspect me to see that and think that of me when they see me. But that's not the feeling I get. I get 3 6 coming at me, hitting me with 3 different questions, not giving me a moment to answer them, and then resulting in an deficiency because I didn't have a chance to answer them. The only thing I'm asking, there are 2 things: a checklist. Why don't we have a checklist? Can they hand me a checklist? We can go through my checklist and I can see that we didn't ever get to answering that question that they did. And number 2, that the inspectors, I find it's a lot of information to know for every single one of them for every single type of license. Maybe think about inspectors for each one individually. So there are cultivator inspectors and there's retail inspectors, because I find that I'm teaching the inspectors why I have what I have. And I think it would be a much better situation if we could partner in this and not feel like we're still in the wrong and the police are coming. And I don't know if I'm going to get fined because it's a pre-roll that I don't know. I've heard weird stories. Okay, I've heard some weird stories about people getting fined on strange things, and it does make me walk around with this. I'm scared. Like I'm forefront here, right? Nobody else is doing this. I'm doing this. I want to do this well. I want to do this well together. We can do that. Okay.
Hi, thank you. To everybody, this has been really excellent.
State your name for the room.
My name is Ari Zorn. I own Divine Retail Cannabis with my wife Heidi, but I'm here representing my friends who can't be here, John Kiyosaki of Wideacre Farms and David Jadow. They wanted me to read this. The carbon footprint of 1 pound of indoor flower is between 4,500 and 1,500 pounds of released carbon. An outdoor pound cannabis flower releases around 25 pounds of carbon. If we outdoor growers don't get the same protection from the nuisance compliance around odor that conventional farmers get, outdoor growers will be litigated out of business as our margins are already so small. So John and David are in West Stockbridge. Obviously, they're outside. They're friends of mine. They're just being harassed about these ridiculous odor litigation. You know, neighbors saying, and not even some of them, not even really technically abutting neighbors that are in Richmond. Comments like, you know, my dog's getting sick. premier weed, like all this stuff, we know it's just ridiculous. But they're harassing and trying to shut these guys down. Which kind of goes on, they follow every rule and every single regulation. They've also gone well beyond that by bringing in these $10,000 fans and some kind of enzyme in the town. Anytime they bend over to do something for the town, they keep coming out. Now, what, it's funny, I didn't think about this before I started talking. So the precedent that could come from this is that now there's people probably everywhere that want to see places shut down because it smells. I mean, I live in the Berkshires and it smells like cow manure.
Yeah.
That tells me that I'm home. But imagine the precedent that could be set from this. If this municipality has the ability to try to shut them down, although they went through all the hoops for you guys to get open, why can't they turn to every single person here in every municipality and try to shut them down because of that? That's what I have to say. Now, I have one more statement, but it's to retail. New York is on our heels. They're allowed to sell 3 ounces. Massachusetts is allowed to sell 1. I would love to see that change for Mass.
3 ounces and 24 grams.
It's crazy.
And
It's crazy.
Can I make a comment, please? Our permit from the town, we have an 11-point validation system for odor. To sustain that, we spend $7,500 a year to get odor surveys. We have odor surveys going back 4 years. Every one of them has said, they have a scale, there's a scale for intensity of odor. Every one of them says in 1 mile radius around our facility, the strongest odor is from cow manure. Never has it been from our farm. Our driveway is 800 feet long. And yet we've had one of the neighbors try to complain, and then the building inspector has to come out and validate. He has never been able to validate it. But once again, just for our own peace of mind, we have to spend $7,500 a year to make sure that they go through the protocol that they approved in the permit. But it's compared to farm smells. We don't even, we're not even on that, but I forget the name of the scale, but it's a scientific approach to odor. And so that's our.
Again, that's local control, you and your neighbors and your municipality. Not sure what we can do at this level, but I appreciate you sharing that. Thank you, though.
Sorry, I forgot to say it, please. Where does someone go to get help with that? Just at the CCC with the piece I was getting in the lottery. With the municipalities. I mean, what, they have too much power. Where does someone go to get help? Who do you talk to?
Talk to your legislator and stuff. It's really the local, there is a big local control component to the cannabis industry, whether it's citing, your HCA's, citing your locations, zoning, setbacks and buffers and, so again, I'm not trying to pass the buck, but that's the buck, that's the local control. So, I would say, education, like you just shared with us, it's the cow manure more, but I don't have an easy answer because it's it does fall out of our jurisdiction.
These small towns can spawn with strong legal defense. Part of the marijuana establishment.
Just a second. One of this whole adult use thing started, they quickly pulled cannabis out of the term for agriculture, out of the definition of agriculture. It happened very quickly in the middle of the night, right before December closed, the legislator. If the CCC could put some effort towards getting the word cannabis back into a definition of agriculture, we would have state protection from agricultural laws, nuisance laws, such as smell, et cetera. Right. And then we could encourage the Right to Farm Act, which then would give us even more baggage for new homeowners that are coming to a town, such as Truro, Massachusetts, where my co-op is located, and the difficulties we're having is with the butters. We are all ready to go with you guys. We need 2 permits. And when we move forward, we get threatened to sue by mega millionaires and we can't afford that. So we pulled numerous applications out of our town applications. But if we were able to throw cannabis back in there with vegetables, dairy, silviculture, aquaculture, everything else is in the definition of agriculture, chapter 128. That's where the change needs to happen. And that I do believe you guys could have some massive influence with the State House to get that cannabis word back into farming, because as I've talked to some people, farming his whole life, right? And we're farmers, we might not be conventional farmers in the sense that, everyone's had been growing cannabis on their farm starting, but it's just another crop for me. And that's something important, is to get it designated as an agricultural crop, not as something special that needs special consultants and special fines, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So,
And I appreciate that, Dave, and you did say something, it is a legislative fix, that doesn't mean that, we decided to vote on legislative outreach around that, we could. If you talk to your legislators about sponsoring a bill, getting a bill in there, it's really, that's where the rubber meets the road on that, is it has to get fixed legislatively. And maybe the rescheduling of cannabis will help a lot in that argument, right? If it's no longer a Schedule 1 on par with heroin, and there's a recognized medicinal value and value to cannabis, that might help the cause and help the argument along the way. But it is a legislative fix.
I think it's important to have the CCC's support of our legislation. So by bringing Julie and Sarah to your table, it's discussing with us. That you can say, yes, the CCC does support this bill you're trying to get through, because he has been working on it.
Agreed.
But then it gets stifled because he's got 100 other bills he has to submit as well. So it really needs your policy group to make the push, not just the farmers who, don't have as much push, but you guys actually have a lot of say in the State House of how this all shakes down. So even if it's just a verbal or a written recommendation saying we support cannabis going back into chapter 128 definition, would be a real helpful first step for other legislators in the state to actually be like, all right, let's come up with a concept that would work.
And tell me the benefits, quickly, what that would bring you if it was put back in.
A chapter.
Yeah, if it was recognized.
Then it would be a farm. We would be able to use all the rights that MDR gives us and the federal, backing as well.
Right.
And we have a right to farm and a right to do our jobs and not have be impeded, in the process of that. So we have a lot of backing if we want to use the manure lagoon field, we spray manure, waterized manure all over our fields. We have a lot of protection from the state. Neighbors can't say anything if it smells like manure. We have the right and the protection from the state to do that, but we have no rights to protection from the states to cannabis currently, because of a very shady deal that went down in the very beginning of all this. So, which is obviously, a lot of people think it's MSO driven. So I'm just,
No, that's really helpful information, chapter 128, definition.
there's no definition. They pull cannabis out immediately, within minutes of it.
Okay, that's really helpful information, thank you. Megan?
I'm sorry, just to add on that, Sherry. I think that the biggest thing, you started off this entire meeting saying that it was the #1 crop in the state. How come you guys aren't standing up for us here at the top of, the State House and giving us the protections we need? How much money we're bringing to this state, the tax revenue, the exorbitant tax revenue of 20% new. That's one thing that you guys should be literally standing on your soapbox and screaming to all of
And
us.
that's just 20% of the tax revenue. There's another 80% still on accounts for.
I'd be happy to sponsor that in a future. This is honestly, I'm learning this. This is new information to me. No one's advocated this to me prior to those words coming out of your mouth. Dave, no one has advocated. Email, phone call. Thank you for that information. And yes, a bunch of us, 2 of us would be happy to sponsor that discussion on a future meeting. The next legislative, session is ended. The new one starts, I believe, in January. So now we have time to figure out you know, how we approach new legislative session and whether we have, you know, sponsors of, on the House and the Senate, if there's a sponsor of a bill, it's something that we can vote upon in agreement that we would, support. But no, we can't support a bill, but we can support the concept of what you're proposing.
That's what I figured. Thank you.
I have a point of order.
Yes.
I'm gonna excuse myself for 2 minutes. I'm gonna go to the restroom. I know there's more folks that need to speak. I know there's some other folks, but I will be back in 2 minutes. I have to go to the restroom.
Okay.
Everybody missed the best part.
Well,
Oh.
was it a 5 minute? I get to take a 3 minute
Oh,
break.
3 minute break, yeah.
Right. Okay, so you can take 3 minutes. And you can hold that, okay? Thank you, everyone. Next. We have Megan Dobro from Safety Development.
Hi, thank you everyone, and thank you for having this. And for coming to my school, so we didn't have to drive so far. My name is Megan Dobro. I'm the founder and CEO of Safety Labs, a testing lab in Westfield. As a quick background, I'm a molecular biologist by background and got my PhD in a microbiology lab. I got into this industry because I care about public health and I felt like we could do testing better. I wouldn't say this if I didn't think it was the right thing to do, but I think that we need to remove the total aerobic bacteria and the total yeast and mold testing.
Yeah.
I truly believe it's the right thing to do as a mom, as someone who cares about public health, and as a scientist. I don't see any negative sides to doing that. The microbial categories are too broad. Total aerobic bacteria just means bacteria that live on oxygen. So all the bacteria in our environment, and especially rich in our soils and our crops. A large majority of those bacteria, which many of you have mentioned before, are harmless to humans. Some are even beneficial to us and to the plants. They're natural pesticides that help to fend off from more harmful species. There are a few bacterial species found in cannabis that are harmful to humans, and those are what we should be testing. 22 states don't have a total aerobic bacterial limit, so we would not by far be the first to do this. Total yeast and mold is also a broad category that needs more definition if we were to keep it like total aerobic bacteria. Testing labs and the vendors that manufacture the tests have no guidance about which species are supposed to be included. So one lab could be testing for 4 species, another lab could be testing for 40 species, have wildly different results, and they would all be within the compliance of the vague regulations right now. As an example, when we first opened, we realized we were the only lab testing for powdery mildew, which everyone in this room knows is a very common mildew on cannabis plants that doesn't have a lot of impact on human health. And so we've had to adapt with different technology and remove that species because we didn't get any guidance from the CCC about what species are we supposed to be included. It's just very vague for us as a lab. The species lists on different platforms are different, so the labs aren't choosing what species to test for, right? We have a few companies we can buy these platforms from. They choose what's included, and it's really easy to see how the same sample can fail miserably at one lab and pass completely cleanly at another lab. And it's not because of lab fraud, not because of incompetence of the lab, it's just a symptom of vague regulations. 13 states don't have total yeast and mold. Aspergillus has been mentioned. That is one that actually does have evidence of impacting human health in cannabis. As long as there's evidence for it, I think that's a test that we should add. 27 states require Aspergillus testing right now in Massachusetts. The total aerobic bacteria and total yeast categories have the widest variability across technologies. As I said, this causes lab shopping. It's influencing what's influencing the tests at different labs. Remediation of flour. The bodies of the bacteria, yeast, and mold don't go away. The DNA is still there. It's just broken apart. And so the lab has to do a really good job of separating the dead DNA from the live DNA because the regulation says viable cells. And if that separation isn't complete, then even those who remediate could be impacted by these limits. There are pros and cons of each method. The enumeration tests, which are these where we're counting, we're quantifying the total amount of cells, they're only measuring a snapshot in time. So microbials continue to grow on flowers for the year that those results are good for. Of course, we're seeing products with failing levels of microbes when we do off-the-shelf and secret shopper programs. They didn't stop growing because the testing has been completed. This leads to damaged reputations of cultivators and testing labs alike. One chief science officer for a popular testing platform vendor told me that the total counts test would not hold up in court, which the technology is just not there yet for that to be an accurate test, which leaves vulnerability for expensive lawsuits from big companies that basically are subject to recall. There are no studies that show cannabis consumers get sick if they consume 11,000 CFU per gram of total yeast-stirred mold. That limit is totally arbitrary. And I don't believe that there is any amount of benign bacteria, yeast or mold that's going to make us sick when it's combusted and inhaled. Otherwise, every hippie smoking dank basement weed going back decades would have gotten sick. The result of difficult limits to pass with broad categories is widespread remediation of flower, which is expensive and comes with negative perception, and so many companies are hiding this treatment from consumers. The industry in mass is really suffering. Commissioner Kamari, you put it really well when you said there's no joy in this industry. Every company is just doing what it can to survive. With the current microbial limits and categories, it's nearly impossible for many companies to survive, and I fear that that's resulting in less safe product being sold to consumers. There are too many loopholes and not enough oversight of the sampling process with the sample that gets sent to the testing lab. So the samples that go to the labs, they're not representative of the batches. I can promise you that.
I pause you right there. Are you recommending labs go out and pull a randomized sample or?
I'm recommending that we follow what's listed in the protocol of sampling document that outlines how sampling should be done, randomized and on camera, and that there needs to be oversight and enforcement of that.
Some states have a round robin where they have to send it to multiple labs. I don't know if New York has that, and some states do have that. But okay, so sorry I interrupted you. I had you on that. Go ahead, right?
We need realistic limits and categories that focus on human health in order to ensure consumers that dispensary products are safe. Otherwise, why would they pay the high taxes in dispensaries? Removing the broad categories or raising the limit would decrease lab shopping for passing results, reduce the need for remediation, reduce tampering with lab samples, boost employee morale, all without jeopardizing public health. If we add specific pathogenic species testing, like Aspergillus, I also recommend Candida albicans for support. Lastly, there's a lot of robust cannabis research that's happening in the scientific community and will be more productive when federal restrictions are lifted. So as we learn more about cannabis microbiology and human health impacts for different delivery methods, we need to remain nimble enough to make changes as new information is available. The testing program was set up to be strictly broad, and we've seen across the country that consumers are not getting sick in states with well-defined narrow categories that focus on species instead of total count. So it's time to adapt. Focusing on species is good for both producers and consumers. And then separate, real quick at the end, there's a lot of land out here. As you can see, it's really long and it takes a long time to drive to each facility. Please get rid of the 2-driver rule for all license types.
Finish that sentence and replace it with, because for anybody that's not in science or in this field, you saying, gee, they're not going to test, they're throwing away total yeast and mold or aerobic bacteria counts. That sounds scary and it doesn't sound, but finish the sentence and say, well, we're going to replace it with pathogens that are a danger to public consumption, whether it's Aspergillus, or we're going to do strain specific, or we're going to do pathogen specific to test it. Make it even more safe, maybe, I don't know. So that's the thing, just like, we can't just say we're throwing the baby out with the bathwater and that's it. And we're trying to say what makes sense to replace it with to ensure those things.
A compromise would be, if you get a lot of pushback on this, what New York does is that they test for it, but it's just for monitoring purposes. There's no limit applied, so it doesn't cause failed batches or recalls. So that if consumers want to know, there's transparency there for consumers. They could get the COA if they wanted to know, but there's no script on there.
And then the following, the CFUs, what about medical patients? What are your thoughts on that?
Until there's evidence that says that they're getting sick from total yeast and mold, then I don't think it's
necessary. And why on the suppositories for the Candida albicans as opposed to every product?
Because depositories with yeast
But, okay, and you don't think that other products should be tested for cannabis?
No, because when it's combusted and inhaled, there's no evidence that that's making people sick. As opposed to final products, suppositories, which are directly.
So there's been like no oral thrush, no systemic overgrowth of yeast or. Right, thank you, Megan. There's me again back there.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just want to point something out. That it sounds scary. Rationale is exactly how we got here.
And that's what I'm trying to avoid.
Right, so that's number one. So look at the science. Number two, you look at the science, the only evidence is aspergillus and only for people who already had immune compromise. So that should be for medical. I proposed exactly what was proposed. If you don't eliminate the total yeast mold, keep the tests exactly as they are, just eliminate the actual level. Or report only, just like New York does. Report only. That way the consumer can decide.
I think as the other testing lab in the room, I think Megan had a great point where if somebody says something to our lab and we're testing for 40, and somebody says something to her lab and she's testing for 4, I think that just highlights the importance for standardization, not only in methods, but in technologies, because these technologies are producing vastly different results. And everybody in this room is caught on because the first question I get asked for the new customer is, do you plate or do you use PCR?
PCR, plate.
And if I say plating, then that will be the end of the conversation. So standardization is so important because regardless of the accuracies or whatever, we're all doing it the same way. It doesn't matter whether they go to Megan or they go to me, they're gonna get the same answer. And that's, I think, what we're really concerned about. Trust in the science, trust and make sure it's a data science driven decision.
And you're advocating standardization.
Absolutely.
Okay, and you guys see anything?
I second exactly what John said. What I was gonna say is just like she brought up, if you're testing for 4 things here and 400 things there, even on the cannabinoid side, I mean, on the cannabinoid side, there's 30 or 40 different HPLCs being used in the state between all these labs, different calibrations, different standards. It'd be great if you guys gave some oversight and told us, guys, this is what you have to use or within these parameters.
Oversight on
Definitely.
standardization.
Standardization, yeah. And even with potency, I think you bring a great point, you know, that's one of the reasons why a lot of people lab shop. Because what they can get for something that tests at 30% versus 20% is massive. So, you know, standardize everything that you can, but also maybe think about eliminating potency altogether. Put a range in there, say it's between this and this. And that's because potency is, I mean, if you can tell the difference between a 25 and a 22%, God bless.
Terpenes, I wish, you know, that was what folks were seeking, you know, but that's a hell of a lot to push.
On that policy, I think it's important to think about the incentive of setting up. So you can't see the product, right, in our packaging, but you see the policy, that's all you can see. And everyone's wondering why we're in the policy shop. So, you know, you think about those two things, and, you know, I like to joke, but I'm not joking, outdoors, better weed, but only by objective standards, like minor cannabinoids and terpenes. You know. But that said, I mean, you know, again, I just want to emphasize that the potency is produced guys and it pushes the market in the wrong direction.
Definitely.
I honestly somewhat just disagree a little bit, because science isn't subjective, and like, we're talking about people who use this for medicine, like 5 milligrams, 6 milligrams, or with the swing that we're talking about, a 5 milligram gummy at your lab could be an 8, at his could be a 12 at someone else's. I think that is very important.
Doesn't apply to flower.
The confused products are different. Yeah, for sure. But I think even in flower, like a true 30 is definitely different than a true 10. Granted, just looking at the rest of what the cannabinoids are, but I do think potency is.
As long as it's accurate.
As long as it's completely accurate.
That's what I'm
standardized.
trying to say.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Okay, one more question, again, one more.
Very quickly getting back to the testing levels. Conversation was had over 3 years ago prior to NDOR changing their regulation, improving organic pesticides. Personally, I had a conversation, and it's not relevant now, with Sean Collins, the executive director. He was aware of it and said, you know, hopefully we get to the point. This was, I'm not saying what was in his head, it was a conversation that I had, that testing, having an overall testing level, and that's it. If you clear that, then you're clear. If you fail that, then you can continue down to look for more harmful bacteria from them. I don't know how where that level would be, that's the science, that's, you know, where your office and you need to get the guidance on how to make that happen. But it was conversation over 3 years ago that the commission, I know, were trying to figure out. And that was prior to NDAR. He thought that the problem was NDAR. NDAR, hear that word.
And why have a 10 ppb pesticide limit when even if you have a detection, it's still going through the whole process of an investigation being launched? It didn't technically fail, but you still detected it, and it still opens up the doors for fines and penalties to the culprits.
Next on the list is Jesse. From BOI.
Can't buy.
Thank you.
Yeah. My name is Jeffrey Scambati. I run operations at EOS Farms. I came out here from California 3 years ago after a relative collapse of the market over there. So thank you guys for trying to uphold the market here. I think we stand a good chance in just by the nature of what Massachusetts is and how we support farmers and small business here. So I'm hopeful. Ultimately, I think it comes down to economics for all of us. It's really hard to grow cannabis here. I've been doing this my whole life in California. The yields are lower here. We've got less sunlight. The conditions are less favorable. This plant is not from this bioregion. So all of the farmers that are doing a great job here are very skilled and are figuring out a new puzzle ultimately. And it'll get better year after year for a number of reasons. One of the issues is capital and labor, which kind of tie together. The other is quality. A lot of the farms that I've visited are doing a phenomenal job, and they're still building this as they drive it, which is the same as we're doing at our farm. The reason that is because most of these people imagined that they would have more capital available at this point in time. So the hope here is to ultimately all make a little bit more money so we can finish our facilities and do things to have the quality to compete in the market. As outdoor cultivators, we produce at the lowest cost per gram of THC over the indoor producers. And whether we agree with it or not, there's a big quality difference in lots of different metrics between indoor and outdoor. And I prefer the outdoor product, but from a bag and peel perspective, indoors got us all the way. It's really an uphill battle as an outdoor cultivator to put your product at the same level as indoor. It's a marketing problem, but it's also a cultivation problem. Most of us harvest one time a year or at best twice a year. And we need to be absolutely precision in our execution of our harvests, as well as very skilled in the storage of our product for it to still be good 6, 7, 8 months later. That is an infrastructure problem and a labor problem. So there's a number of ways that people will address this, but the things that I wanted to bring up to the group that would provide some immediate relief is most of these have been brought up, but the packaging size should definitely go up. 15 pounds is a very small package. There's a labor element to it. And 3 years ago when I got here, that represented $45,000 worth of revenue. And now it may be $7,000 or $8,000 worth of revenue. So a 100-pound package would be logical. That would bring us right back up to that $45,000 worth of revenue, which I think may have been more in line with the economics of the situation. The other thing is the transferring without pesticides for fresh frozen. Again, we could deal with a package size increase. For us to do fresh frozen, which is the highest, for a lot of the outdoor farmers, at least some portion of your field will have to go to extract because of disease pressure, which is a very real thing in this wet, humid environment that we have to cultivate in here. So if you have a section or a chunk of your farm, if not all of it, that has to go fresh frozen, and you need to put it right into the freezer for it to be of the highest value to the extractor, you now have to have freezers on your property. We only need those freezers for our production. So we're building infrastructure
that's expensive. We have to put cameras in there. We have to go through this whole ordeal for something that just sits there completely empty for the rest of the year. Well, the extractor needs to have that infrastructure on their facility regardless, because it takes them time to get through that product. So I think that that would allow us to load product right into freezer trucks. Maybe make them test it before they start to work with it, but at least allow us to transfer it offsite so that we can cut it down, put it into their truck, get it off of our facility day up. That would be a huge boon, and that's what they do in a lot of other markets. The temp labor is another issue as far as being able to work from one license to another. You would think that, just to kind of flush it out, you would think that the harvest time is the same for all of us, but the way that it works is we're waiting for the last possible moment so we can get the highest THC levels, but that we may not know until within a day or two, until the weather's hitting per strain what we need to harvest. So if we did have a robust temp labor available in the state, we could juggle that across a number of farms, and that's how it works for us. We need 10 people one day, and the next day we might not need anybody. And as far as the window for that, I would say that needs to, if the window was going to be relevant, it needs to extend, because at this point, we're running an extremely lean crew by necessity. And once we get all that product in, there's a huge processing burden that we can't support year round all the time. So when we're looking at temp labor for our farm, we're trying to bring them in for 3 months and really burn through a bunch of that post-production labor with that crew as well. So those are my points for you guys. And then just for the cultivators in the room, I think a lot of you guys are kind of running craft farms, and what I saw in California was a race to the bottom, and everybody lost. The people who won are the people that stacked licenses, and they're running 50 acres, and they just started as before. They're consuming the market because they've got it down to where their cost of production is so low, nobody small can compete at that point. They've got the machinery, the infrastructure, everything. We as craft producers can't do that. And from my understanding, and this takes, again, capital to be able to hold your ground, but the retailers don't want us to race to the bottom either. They don't want your $1.50 a gram, because that means that they're selling it for $3, $4 a gram at retail. Nobody wants that. When I first got here, looking at the CCC data, everyone will parse that differently. But my interpretation was when we first saw prices really drop, there was still price elasticity. We had consumption growing and pretty much keeping our monthly spend equal. At some point, when we got to a certain point, we reached inelastic prices where consumption stayed the same, prices continued to drop. And that's what we're seeing now. And our monthly spend is dropping month by month. We see that. And that's bad for everybody, including the retailers. So we need our the huge guys, we get federal legalization, let Philip Morris take up that $1.50 a gram market. And if you need to sell your product for those prices, because you've got to do what other industries do, send it to the extractors and preserve your brand. Because ultimately, the retailers want your $4 a gram product so that they can sell it for 10. And you're not undercutting them at another store because you need cash through the door. So ultimately, we're all trying to race to the bottom with pricing, and we're all ending up broke. And if we can kind of hold our ground in some way, the retailers who we feel victim to because they're bargaining against us, the bad retail, not to call them bad retailers, but the aggressive retailers, let them deal with that budget market, and the craft producers need to couple up with retailers that want to carry quality brands. And in order to do that, we need to produce quality cannabis, which requires labor and infrastructure. So we're not sending bad product, because that's the other blanket thing that you see across the country is ultimately with regulation, the quality of outdoor product, especially as everybody's had to scale up and scale up with less money, the quality of outdoor cannabis has gone down and down and down. You cannot produce the same quality of cannabis for $500 a pound that you could for $3,000 a pound. And so we need to start to create some immediate relief with the things these guys are all talking about from the side of the commission. Restrict licenses at some level so that we limit that oversupply. And then we need to couple up with the retailers that support craft product so that we can get our quality up to compete with indoor on the things that we can compete with indoor on, because there's certain things we can't, and there's other places we have them beat. But when we create quality product, couple with retailers that respect our quality product, and we can drive high levels of pricing, then their customer that comes in for 5 grams every week, they can make their $5 per gram. So they're making $25 off that customer. We're getting $20 of revenue. Instead of everyone's selling $2 wholesale, $4 retail, they're making $10 a customer, and we're losing our shirts.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, everyone.
Corey, sorry.
Just wanted to ask a follow-up on what Jesse was talking about. You should, believe in 2022, there was, legislature passed laws about, enabling, social consumption. If, you know, if growers could sell to social consumption locations, that's a whole new market and one which would actually care about the craft product. Is there, is that gonna happen anytime?
Well, the architects of it are sitting to my right and my left, so I would have to answer. Who wants to answer that?
I would just say, in the interest of time, I'm happy to stay here and talk a little bit about it, but I want to make sure that everyone who's here for outdoor growing kind of specific conversation right now, that we can do that, because I think there's like 5 more people left. But there's more to come on that, and we're happy to talk to you afterwards.
Thank you.
I want to make sure that everyone who's left, to speak, so if you guys could keep it to 3 minutes, please. I know that Kelly is, doing the thing over here. We're gonna hang out for a little bit. We have another meeting, scheduled at 2, but I think we can be, myself and Commissioner Stefan can be late to that. So just keep it to the 3 minutes so that we can hear you all.
All right, Brent. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Brady Farnsworth Fine Cannabis just down the street. Want to thank the commissioners for being here today. Because I think your job is as difficult as ours as operators. And I think this is a great example of driving our market. I want to talk about 2 things. We're a retailer and manufacturer. I've walked into over 40 facilities here in Massachusetts. The overall microbial tests and anaerobic tests. One thing that we haven't really discussed today is how it's affecting the quality of cannabis. There's several times I walk into a dispensary, I buy that thing that I want, do that straight heavy coating. I get home and I break it open, it's dry, and it's hard to consume.
And remediate considerations.
Or if you to avoid the testing protocol, they use vaporized hydrogen peroxide or X-ray, will affect the final quality of the products. And my biggest concern for Massachusetts is not our market today, but our market when interstate commerce is actually violent. When you choose cannabis based on quality, like myself, I want the 50% of the United States that doesn't have access to legal cannabis to choose Massachusetts grown cannabis. The indoor greenhouse. And so by removing this regulation or testing procedure, it will allow us to compete in the market to come. The average age will match the bottle of wine or the average 6-pack. Around $15 to $18 out the door to the customer. That's just the reality in the United States. That doesn't mean that you can't walk into Domini's down the street and buy a $300 bottle. There's quality that's moving across the top. And I think we are inhibiting our quality based on convenience. Second, I was reporting on the second consent.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, next I have, Helen, Gomez, and Andrews from the Cannabis Advisory Board.
Thank you for coming out to West Fairbanks. We really appreciate it. Much of what I'm going to say has already been said, so I'll try to make it quick. I do think it's really important to reiterate. The current microbial testing policy that requires total yeast and mold and total aerobic bacteria does not differentiate beneficial microbes. This affects everyone across the industry, but it most impacts outdoor farmers as well as small indoor growers that want to go into living soil. And this discourages sustainable organic and regenerative farming practices and forces unnecessary remediation. SUHIPO, who spoke first, submitted a very common sense petition regarding this in 2019. Which, by the way, myself and my co-founder, Chris, over there, we both signed. And what followed that was a convening of a few roundtables with some labs and some cultivators or even pre-operating cultivators, but there hasn't been any progress since. As noted, as some have noted, MDR changed their policy on pesticide use in 2022. And as some have also noted, and I think last I checked, there were around 91 or 100 allowable pesticides. Only one of them was synthetic. And what that means is use of almost any of those allowed pesticides will result in failed multiple TBA test. In any case, SUHIPO has referenced a subject matter expert named Dr. Hong, and I invited him to speak at the August 19 subcommittee meeting of the Cannabis Industry Subcommittee. I would encourage you to watch the recording. Even though you've already heard from all the stakeholders here today who are the true subject matter experts, I think he gives a lot of great scientific background there. I encourage you to watch it. And just one other thing, others here like Nick have spoken to, please make sharing labor across farms easier. Let the badges follow the agent. Manufacturers, dispensaries, or other farms might want to allow their staff to go work a harvest or work in spring or go support their favorite farm. Volunteers might want to do the same. Perhaps a grace period or limited time special volunteer badge for non-agents who work on farms. SOPs and anti-diversion and safety surveillance already exists for all big boys and girls here. I think we can do this responsibly, but correcting badge policy would go a long way in allowing businesses to collaborate and cooperate further and just exist much more in the spirit of it. That's it.
You have that link available for the recording? Yeah. Yes, I will have some with us. One email, that would be, I would love to watch that. Thank you.
Absolutely, thank you.
And I think we have two more folks, Spencer from HHG. Hey, down to last but not least, Ryan Mays. Yes, thank you, Ryan.
All right, good thing that is very important. The last 3 minutes.
Yeah, I'll keep it short and sweet. But I'm Ryan Dominguez. I'm from the Massachusetts Cannabis Coalition. We're an industry group now with 67 members that cross different licensees. I just want to thank the Sun Growers Alliance and all the outdoor growers for all of your comments. I think I've learned a lot today. And I also found out that licensees are sharing a lot of the same issues right now. We need a lot of help. So, thinking about Grant's former comment about splitting things into draft regs as well as things that you guys can do through guidance. I think one thing that could really save all of us money is by increasing the batch sizes. That's something that I know is in a guidance document. I know there's been some numbers thrown around 100 pounds potentially. I know that some of the testing labs here may scoff at that idea, but within our group, I think, we think we could do incremental steps. So like thinking about maybe a smaller increase to like 25 pounds can save us a lot of money in the short term. Some other things I wanted to touch on as well is agent registration cards. I know that this is something that you probably heard from our members a number of times, and I think it's one of those things where we need a badge that can follow the agent. In a similar way to how Harvest, they need a seasonal worker, I think you're going to find that as well within social consumption. There's an event season for cannabis. They're not going to be able to afford having somebody year round. So when you do open up those regulations, I think that's an opportunity for you to consider, creating this new kind of badging system. I also want to touch on metric badge tagging, which was brought up. Just to answer your former question around the hemp prototype for that, we actually had a conversation with the CEO of Metric, Michael Johnson, and that's really like 12 to 18 months away from potentially being implemented. And I think a shorter term solution to that would be negotiating with Metric on badge tagging. That is, something that they allow in Oregon as well as in Maine. And I think it's something that we can work into our next contract with Metro. And I think especially for outdoor growers, this could be a big savings for them and save them a little bit of a headache, but also be meeting our sustainability goals. And then finally, just want to touch on keeping us competitive with other states. I think there was a comment about residual solvents. And we put together a memo where other states are allowing 800 to 5,000 ppm, while Massachusetts is limited to 12 ppm. And this was, kind of looked at back in 2015. So within that guidance document, it was supposed to be a periodical review to see whether or not the research would change some of those limits. And I think we're well overdue for making some of those changes. And there's many other states that are up to that 5,000 level, and happy to share that memo and some of our recommendations with you. And then finally, touching on the increasing of purchase limits, that was like our #1 priority going to the legislative session. And I think this is an opportunity for all of us to sell more product. But I think the barrier that we did face was on the legislative side. To increase the purchase limits, we also need to increase the amount that somebody can possess in their person. And I know that that falls on the State House responsibility. But as you all go into the next legislative session, I think that's an opportunity for you all to educate the legislature on needing to make that change so we can help some of our businesses. So again, I think we need as much immediate help as possible, and then looking into legislative changes for more of the long term. Thank
you.
I'm gonna sneak in here, and I really will keep it short and sweet. And most people maybe know me, if not, Dan Berger, 3 minutes under could be that, okay? First off, though, Dan Berger, Grass Ventures LLC, subjoined the cannabis industry. My delivery operator license in Salem, Massachusetts is finally open. So, and also really the community helps because, yeah, I had to lean on many people throughout this journey. But I do want to start with, I hate to even do this, but not really, a land acknowledgement. We are here on Mohican land. I live up in North Adams. I'm a direct maternal descendant of the Wampanoag Confederacy, actually, through the First Nation Mi'kmaq. So welcome everybody to that, But that being said, my points, all right? Every single meeting I've been to for the past, I don't even know how many years now, it seems these are things that come up. Guidance on zoning. I have lived and breathed in that section of local control quite a bit lately, chapter 94G, section 3, I think it is, right? In there, it's pretty explicit about the powers of the commission, right? And I think there's also room for interpretation. One thing that has been a struggle with me across the state, trying to get operational, municipalities don't know where they want to put us, especially when you get outside of adult use marijuana retailers. Laser focused on those license types to start. And I say our outdoor cultivators here, you're trying to get operational somewhere. They want to put you out on a concrete slab in the industrial zone where, yeah, good luck getting seeds to them. Right. So zoning guidance, I think, could be helpful across the board, regardless of your license type. Number 2, vertical integration requirements on the medical side. was briefly touched on. I said this would be short. We'll try to keep short. Removing that, I think, could help, right? So are any of the outdoor cultivators in this room attached to a licensed medical establishment? I'm gonna go out on a limb. It's, okay, a couple. You guys are in the minority, right? That fulfills LME's, right? Regulatory requirement to have cultivation under their vertically integrated camp, right? Most people, and if we're having operators who are strictly outdoor cultivators, if they're not able to get on the shelves, I'm gonna go out on a limb, and I know this too, because I'm trying to get operational in municipalities where these LMEs came in. They were the first people, they hounded on those ACAs, they got operational, and with their one license, they get to do everything. We have to pay individual licensing fees, each side on the adult use side, et cetera, et cetera. Again, 3 minutes and it's up. I can send this in an email and I'll.
30 seconds.
30 seconds, and we'll just wrap it up. Glad to be here, glad to finally be operational. Let's get some outdoor up in the North Shore. Okay, everybody, reach out to me. I'm Dan Berger. I started this with a full head of hair.
Everyone, spend that, right? Everybody here, I don't want to omit anyone. I want to make sure everyone felt they were heard, and we all took a lot of notes, as you can see. And it doesn't stop here. I heard over, you had expressed such a petition, or you had meetings with PAC, and then it kind of dies. But you have our commitment, I speak for myself, that we don't want this guy in the vine. We want to look to see what makes sense. If there is low hanging fruit, Brian, I think, kind of illustrated some of the low hanging fruit we could go in, do some certain rights on. But we have to agree as a board. So having said that, before I adjourn us, there is a couple of housekeeping issues that as of the conclusion of this meeting, my authority as acting chair will no longer be. And the commission will be without an acting chair in that case. So while I have the gavel, I want to call a special meeting. I want to call 3 special meetings actually, before I relinquish the gavel. And the first would be to elect an acting chair, because I feel the industry and the agency need one. We've been accused of being a rudderless ship, and I think that feeds into that narrative. And so I want to make sure that there's someone calling meetings, keeping us moving forward, taking this information today and acting on it. And I don't feel we can afford to be with no one in that role. Secondly, I want to call a special meeting to go over the provisional licenses that expired or were set to expire, and Commissioner Margot, that was yours that you brought us. And thirdly, around governance and low hanging fruit on these regs, where we can get to work, roll up our sleeves, and make a difference right away. So if my counterparts can pull out their calendars, I can call these dates. Make sure you're okay with them. I'm going to do that right now. I'm going to call 3 meetings, and then I'm going to adjourn us and thank you all for your time. But how about Thursday? I just want to Thursday.
Commissioner Roy, yeah, we can do this.
No, I have to call the meeting dates. I have to call the dates.
I'm happy to do this. I'd rather spend the time here having conversations with folks, meeting and meeting, and then we can do this with our scheduling assistants and stuff.
Okay, so when I no longer have the gavel, then it'll be trickier to call meeting dates. So, okay, so you don't want meeting dates. I try to call meeting dates to keep us moving forward, but you can see it gets a little tricky. So having said that, any final comments from anyone?
Massachusetts is the standard. I've been to New York, I've been to Georgia, I've been to Florida. They all want to copy what we're doing. Everyone isn't selling cannabis. You're selling experience that is unlike anybody else in the East Coast. Remember why we do this.
That's right.
That's
We have so many issues that we're dealing with. And I know that we have to do this in our public meeting, but the sooner we can get this done, I think the better.
Okay, so I'm calling the special meeting for 10 a.m. next Thursday to help settle that.
And just thank you so much, if I may.
Yes.
We do have an acting chair. She's on medical leave, as everybody knows. And right now we have an executive director who's also running the day-to-day operations, and us as individual commissioners are continuing to do our job in terms of policy as we speak. We're here today. So
Thank you. Awesome.
All right, we're being adjourned. Thank you, Rob.
Say thank you.